This podcast is brought to you by Boss to Boss Productions, Intrinsic Marketing, and Hodgepodge. So, that's Black.
The black portion of the show.
A.K.A. Nick, A.K.A. Two Scoops, A.K.A. Oso Negro. I'm going to think a couple of other ones before we get all said and done, too.
Yes.
And I'm Mack, a.k.a. Maher Ayub, and I am going to be I'm going to be the assistant GM at some point. I'm going to be the kind of the data entry. I'm going to be your assistant for the show later on because we're going to talk that. But we're here to talk all things NBA. I think today's probably one of those appropriate days where it's just got.
I feel like it is. NBA. I have been texting you. I literally had been texting you and messaging you on Facebook on your wall all week for this show to happen.
I know.
Because I've come up with like 50. In my head, it feels like 50 scenarios of what the Knicks can do at number 3 and why Knicks fans should stop being idiots for at least 5 days.
Yeah.
Because this isn't as bad as we think it is.
No.
It's not. And everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe the Knicks can't do nothing right. And what are we going to do at 3? And I can't believe we're going to get Zion. Before you jump off the bridge, I'm going to reel you back in. Mm-hmm. We're all going to chat. And we're going to break this down.
Yeah.
By the way, that pose that I always do at the beginning and end of the show is homage to Sabu and RVD. Because as many of you guys know that's right, I'm a diehard wrestling fan. Mm-hmm. Money in the Bank is tomorrow night. Okay. I have absolutely no predictions what's going to happen, so I'm not going to bore you.
My dad will be watching.
Yes, I'm not going to bore you with what I think is going to happen because I'm that guy that, these are the wrestling fans that I hate watching wrestling with. I bet you that's going to happen. And then when it happens, I told you it's going to happen. Shut up. I didn't want to know. I watch wrestling like a kid, like I was supposed to. Yeah. Like, I don't want to know what happens. Like, that's the one thing that kills me about wrestling is outside of Miz and Mrs., and I don't know why I love that show. I just think it's hilarious because the relationship that the Miz and Maurice have will be the relationship that I have if I ever find a girlfriend. I feel like we are kind of in the same boat. That's why I love the show. Yeah. But I don't like all the in the wrestlers live stuff. Like, I would never know that Hulk Hogan's real name was Terry if I just didn't happen to be watching a show and the credits come in. Like, I really wouldn't know Sting's real name. Like, every time I want to see Sting I would know him as Sting. Like, I wouldn't call him Steve Borden, which is his real name. I feel like wrestling is too reality-based. No. I don't like that. I love the mystery of it.
You can thank Ronda Rousey for that. But
easily.
But before we start, I do want to tell you guys a little bit about our sponsor, Intrinsic Marketing.
Yes.
So you started a business because you believe in what you do. Let Intrinsic Marketing bring your product or service to the market. That's what they do best. Intrinsic has the services, tools, and expertise to make it happen, all in one place. We've got web design, social media, copywriting, targeted ads. Don't take our word for it. See it for yourself. Visit intrinsic.chicago.com. That's intrinsic, INTRINSIC, Chicago.com. I haven't done a spelling like that since I won the spelling bee in 3rd grade. So,
yes.
So it's been a little while. But for more info, again, intrinsic.chicago.com. And that is all for that. So
those kids are geniuses.
I know. And I'm not I was like I was in 3rd grade, and I think it was fresh off of like me just getting into sports, and then I saw Michael Jordan, I think, crying after his first championship. So when I won the spelling bee, I started crying, not because there was really emotion.
Is that the one he won? Is that the one he won after his dad died?
Yeah, okay. So I was still fresh off of that. I'm like, man, I think cool, athletes do this, so I'm just gonna cry here. So I just want to jump right into this here.
Let's do it.
NBA, man, we talked a lot last week about the NBA.
Yes.
We talked a lot about sort of what we sort of knew what was going to happen. Everything that we talked about sort of played out over the last week. Obviously, Portland went on to move into the Western Conference Finals. Denver, we talked about it, man. Denver just didn't really have the same type of experience in that spotlight that Portland has had.
Right.
They've been eliminated a few times. Dame's been there. McCollum's been there. So it was really interesting to see them move on. And then obviously we saw Toronto with, again, they sort of outworked the Sixers, and to be quite honest, the Sixers looked like they were halfway out the door.
And we talked about this on Facebook. The killer in that Toronto-Philadelphia game. In the last 3 minutes of the game, the Sixers had 3 consecutive 24-second violations. Joel Embiid never touched the ball.
Yeah, and you could tell that there was timidness.
Yes.
With like Jimmy, it was so obvious. I kept talking about him being the mature guy and James Butler, and we didn't see that at all. I think again, Jimmy. I don't want to be this guy. I don't like when guys do this, but Jimmy's a free agent after the year, and I think Jimmy maybe didn't exactly see a future in Philadelphia. I think we saw him say goodbye to Philadelphia on Instagram, foreshadowing that more than likely he's not going to be coming back. So but again, the Western Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals are now set. We've got Milwaukee and Toronto. Milwaukee is now up 2 games since then. Complete domination, on both sides of the ball.
And it's so crazy because I feel Milwaukee, if I was to give one real person like the most credit in the world for the success of the Milwaukee Bucks right now, it's Colin Cowherd. Because the Milwaukee Bucks have really turned on the Jets ever since Colin made that show when he dissed Chris Middleton, saying that he did not have, he isn't the second person superstar that the Bucks need. And it's funny because the Bucks are so scary because I feel like the style that you and I clown Portland, and we'll get to them in a sec, the style that they're playing when it comes to the Golden State style, I feel almost as if Milwaukee's doing the same thing, and they're showing Golden State if they move on, and I think that they will, that we can play at your game. But the difference between us and you is we have a 7-foot freak that can get to the hole. You don't, because there's no telling when Kevin Durant's going to come back. And I know that the Warriors are really looking good without him. But I'm just saying Milwaukee right now is on a whole nother level. And when you know that you're playing really good, when Brook Lopez in the first game looked like almost like a poor man's Arvita, like a Dirk. I wanted to say Dirk. Like I remember those glory days of Arvydas Sabonis when he was in Portland, pick and pop, draining threes. Like he wanted the ball. And it seems like Marc Gasol, and I just read the story on it that said that Marc Gasol took the blame because of he's been now doing it for 2 games.
We talked about it last week. He's not Grizzlies Marc Gasol.
No, he's not. He's not. And on top of that, and you gotta, and I gotta maybe give a small pass to Mark. Maybe he's never been this deep. Like he's been to the playoffs with Memphis, but not Western Conference Finals.
Or Eastern
now
Conference,
you're in the Eastern Conference Finals. You're in a brand new ball game, and I feel bad for Kawhi because Kawhi has been down this road, but now he has to do everything himself. And it took a miracle shot for them to even be in this position in the first place. Because it was pretty much, if you think about it, in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semis between Toronto and Philadelphia, if you watch that game, it was basically the experience of Kawhi versus the inexperience of the 76ers.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if you had one Sixer on there that had been in the same position as Kawhi has, we're talking Milwaukee, Philadelphia in the conference finals. We're not talking Toronto. But the inexperience of the 76ers really came around in crunch time, and then you just saw a miracle shot with a miracle ending happen for Toronto because Kawhi is just that good. But right now, he's trying to do everything against a Milwaukee Bucks team who A, has the MVP, who B, had the best record in the league, who C, Budenholzer has done a great job with his team, and it's a new coach team. He can't do it all by himself, and Milwaukee's making him pay. And it's funny, and I was listening to this on the radio, and then I went back and watched the game, and it rang so true. Giannis had 30 and 17 yesterday.
Yeah.
But by the time he had 20 points, the Bucks were already up at like 15, 20 points themselves.
Yeah, and then you saw it in, I mean, to be quite honest, Toronto, I mean, they weren't even in the game if it wasn't for Kyle Lowry and like Norman Powell and a couple of these guys that were because Lowry was hitting shots out of nowhere,
right.
And then all of a sudden, that first half, they sort of competed. They were sort of kind of in the game, and then they took the lead at some points. To be quite honest, I love what you said about the Raptors because it did take a miracle shot to get them there.
Right.
I mean, we saw, everybody has seen that replay 1,000 times by now of what seems like 15 bounces it took on the rim to go in. I think the 76ers, I'm not sure if they would have done much better in this position, to be quite honest. I don't think anyone's prepared for Milwaukee right now.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I think Milwaukee's got this, I talked about it in the first show we did. I think they're the deepest team left in the playoffs.
Yes.
They've got guys that have, they've got varying guys. They've got guys who've been there, guys who haven't. They've got some stretch 4s, stretch 5s now with Lopez. Brogdon being back has really helped them. Even though, box score-wise, he's not jumping out at you.
Right.
He does a lot for them, and he was gone for, I don't know how long. I think it might have been 2 months at some point. When he came back, they looked like they were sort of just like he jumped right back into the rotation. I don't think the Raptors really can do much about what happened over the last 2 games, and
no.
I'm not sure they can do much over the next 2 games here. I know they're going back to Toronto. They got, it's not a series until the home team loses, right? So,
right.
So obviously, I don't want to say too much, but I just feel like Giannis has slowly, become one of my favorite players in the league. Not just because of like his skill. Obviously, I think he's, his skill is still untapped, to a certain extent. I mean,
right.
We have to remember he's, not exactly young, but he's, green to the game of basketball.
Right.
It's like
right.
He got drafted and he didn't even have like, I think 5 or 6 years of playing basketball up until that point. So this is a guy that's still got untapped potential, but I also like the killer sort of mentality he has now, man. After they came out and lost that game, which again, they've only lost 1 game in all of the playoffs, which is crazy to think about. Yeah, I mean, Giannis just has that killer instinct now. I think, the days of Giannis kind of, staying in the corner and kind of, hiding out on offense are over. He now has the weaponry to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, Mirotic works on that team. Oddly enough, Ilyasova works on that team. Oddly enough, this new version of Brook Lopez works on that team. So it's pretty crazy to see. But we called it. I mean, this is not a team. Toronto is that's ready to match up with the Bucks.
I don't think so either. And if Toronto does not win Game 3, then this series is pretty much all but over.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I'm just so impressed. And I said it in Game 1 when the Bucks lost to the Boston Celtics. I was like, this team is really fun to watch. And a buddy of mine that I did the Sports Den with, who's from Boston, is a diehard Celtics fan. He's like, after they won, he's like, you were saying, and then they come off and win 4 straight. Yeah. That's what I was saying.
Sure.
So, Milwaukee's really fun to watch. And Milwaukee is going to be a team that we're going to be talking about some more. Teaser. This is what we learned in school. Teasers.
Yeah, teasers. Yeah.
Because it's going to tie in to me being Scott Perry. Now, I know I'm wearing my Bucks gear because I just want, let all my Bucks brothers and sisters that watch the show, let them know my allegiance and stuff. But I don't really have a cool Knicks polo, which is what I'm working on because, I'm really a polo guy now, so I'm trying to find me a cool Knicks polo. And this girl that, we used to be friends and I don't know, we fell off, whatever. We went to a Knicks Bulls game and she still has my hat. And I'm really getting pissed off that she will not give me my hat back. Like, of everything that you may have, this all I really want back is my hat. Am I asking for too much?
Can you give the hat back, please?
Please give my Knicks hat back, please. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
And now, we shift over to the Western Conference.
Yeah.
And Game 1, the Blazers were broke.
For sure.
I mean, we don't really need to break anything down with that, with the Blazers being broke. But in game 2,
my God,
I feel as if the Blazers lost that game a little bit more than the Warriors won it. Because here's the funny thing with Golden State. Because Seth Curry, I don't know if you read, made an offhand comment saying that he felt that the Warriors were better without Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I saw that.
And said that they're harder to guard now than they were with KD is on there. And it almost as if Seth might be on to something because the Warriors haven't missed a beat without him. No. It's just so funny that when KD was on the team, Steph Curry couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat.
Yeah,
now crazy. That Steph Curry is kind of back to being the man dropped, what was it, 30-something in the last game and some big threes. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the 73-9 Warriors. Yeah. This is what everyone was talking about when they said that KD needed the Warriors more than the Warriors needed KD. Yeah. This is what we have been talking about, about Kevin Durant really doing this in the LeBron James move going to Miami. Yeah. Because I'm going to tell Portland straight up, if Portland doesn't start using their size, then this series is going to be over too. But what also kills me is the same thing we said about Joel Embiid in Philadelphia. How in the world, and I have so much respect for CJ McCollum. Yeah. Damian Lillard has to somehow handle that basketball in the last 3 minutes of the game.
Does he look hurt to you? I've read a couple things that say he was limping during the game, and there was like he doesn't look right.
Right. There's some tentativeness in his game.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's not attacking like he's literally saying, okay, CJ, here you go, do your thing.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks because CJ McCollum, great shooter at times, but man, when he goes to the hole, okay, it's like when Steph Curry goes to the hole, I feel like it's a 9 out of 10 chance that he's laying the ball up or whatever little jumper he's going to take, it's going to go in.
Yeah.
But when CJ McCollum goes in there, it's like 45% that it's going to happen.
Yeah, he does like these weird like mid-range floaters, like one-handed floaters.
You get what I'm saying? I feel like he could take 2 more steps to get an easier layup. And you're doing the mid-range floaters and they're forever coming up short. And it killed them in game 2. Yeah. It really did. And so I do think that the Blazers tonight, I do think the Blazers take the game tonight. They're going to have Portland on their back. Yeah. I think they're going to go off. I think, it's one of those games where Dame, if he is hurt, is going to be healthy enough to go out there and light up. And by the way, those lime green Dames that he was wearing, fire. I want some.
Yeah, I saw those. Yeah. No, but to piggyback off of that, man, I think it's probably time that we start to give some more credit to Steve Kerr too, man.
Yes.
Dude, I mean, watching that team, Quinn Cook and Jonas Jerebko and I think McKinney came in at some points, and I think obviously Livingston played a huge role at some points. Steve Kerr, man, that guy, he is one of those guys that can roll with the punches, not really ever... he's never really frazzled with what happens around him, and I think he's just kind of consistent with the way that he coaches these guys. And to go back to Seth Curry's point, KD came out and was like, "Oh, that's dumb," or whatever he said about how they're harder to guard. To me, you can make that argument because part of the thing that we even talked about was that there's not much you can do if you're Steve Kerr or if you're Steph Curry or if you're Klay Thompson or if you're Draymond when KD's on the floor. It's just like get him the ball and then let him do his thing, right? There's not a lot of they didn't run a lot of plays for him. He wasn't coming off of screens or it's pretty much find a place on the floor for him to get space, give him the ball, and let him do his thing. This is a much more complicated team without him.
Yes.
The sets that they're running and the type of attention you have to give to them as a defense is way different now.
Yes.
And we saw that with the role players on the Warriors did a great. Jordan Bell did a great job.
Yes.
And to me, Draymond that was like sort of a coming out party for him too over the last couple of games of people like all of a sudden like, well, he's a great defender. Yeah, he's been a great defender this whole time. He's been one of the greatest defenders, in the league in the last couple of years.
Yes.
So you're starting to see Golden State kind of crack that shell that they had when KD came around. And I do want to say, I said this on last week's show, I thought there was something fishy about the way that the Warriors handled the KD injury. Mm-hmm. We talked about how it looked like an Achilles at first, and then they came out and were just like, no, it's not a big deal. He'll miss a couple games. And then now it's like, well, okay, he's going to miss the whole series.
Right.
To me, man, that sounds like that sounds a little fishy, okay?
Yeah.
I don't want to accuse anyone of anything here. I'm not trying to say that they're, hiding his injury. To me, man, they did their best to control the narrative when he got hurt.
Yeah.
And I think they were trying to keep teams on their toes, especially Portland, because, it's a big difference in game planning when he is on the court than when he's not on the court, right? So yeah, I thought that was really fishy. And at the same time, tonight, man, it's a really big game for Portland because obviously if they lose this game, it's going to be really tough to come back. But at the same time, we talked about it. You win your home games and you try and win one on the road. So they've got to come out with this mentality of, and I think what they tried to do was they shifted the way that they played to like we talked about it with Denver. Denver couldn't keep up with their pace. There was just so much going on, and they were flying around the floor and they were shooting at will. And I think they tried to change their game and try to play a little bit different against Golden State. Mm-hmm. And it's showing now. They're not really as effective. I think tonight's a great opportunity for them to get a little bit more familiar with what they're going to be doing against this team. Right. Especially now, you've got the confidence of knowing, okay, we're not going to see KD anymore in this series. Let's go out there. And I think it's really, really crucial that McCollum gets going because, to be quite honest, I don't think Lillard is a guy that can get his shot whenever he wants, right? Like, hurt, not hurt, he can shoot wherever on the floor. He'll be fine, I think. You got to find a way to get McCollum going today. And also Rodney Hood and some of these others. Seth Curry kept him in that game. Let's be honest.
He did.
He hit shots, shot after shot after shot. And, thank God his mom was in the crowd. They kept, panning to her and, God bless you, Mrs. Curry.
God, she is smoking.
So yeah, it was interesting to see, and I thought it was a really cool story to see Steph and Seth on the same floor, and they were trash talking each other, and Steph and they were guarding each other. I thought that was a really cool story.
And here's the thing too. I think the biggest key why I think CJ McCollum is the biggest key is because if I was to find one small flaw in the game of Steph Curry is I don't trust him too much defensively.
He's not a willing defender.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Clay is guarding Lillard because that he's the most dangerous, and Clay is one of the better defenders in the game.
Very good, yeah.
Okay, so now that means CJ McCollum is being guarded by Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Which means
you
got to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And if you're not taking advantage, then it's going to be because if you saw in those last few minutes of that game too, it most definitely was the Klay Thompson was guarding Dame Lillard so hard that almost like CJ had to take control.
Yeah.
But at the same, but again, I don't know. I'm going to start really watching the game with a little closer eye on Dame Lillard because I feel like Dame is the guy that if he wants to get the ball, he's going to get the ball.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? And he
could demand it if he wants to. I don't think he is right now.
Exactly.
And that's the difference.
But I'm saying that if I can see Uncle Drew a couple years ago pretty much use and abuse Steph Curry when he was guarding him a couple years ago when Cleveland won the championship.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like Steph Curry's defense has gotten that much better.
No.
It's just, once again, it's overshadowed because the man drops 37 in the blink of an eye, and no one's going to talk about his defense. Everyone's going to talk about how great of a shooter he is and how much of an impact he is in the court on the offensive side of the ball.
And partly because they're a team defense.
Exactly. Especially when you have Draymond, who even he himself said it's about time to put me in the category as the greatest defender of all time. And I can't argue with that. Yeah. And it shows off to how great Klay Thompson is on defense as well. And it's going to cause so much controversy because it's put out like this. When KD was on the court, we started having all these questions about, will Klay stay? Will Draymond stay? Will KD stay? Like, who's Golden State really going to keep there? But now that you see him gone, and not only have they not missed a beat, but some people even said that maybe the Warriors look a little bit better without him out there. I mean,
that's hard to argue with over the last couple games.
It's very hard to argue. So then, if you're Golden State, do you sit here and say like, damn, like it's gonna suck to maybe let one of the top 2 players go in the league?
Yeah,
but I don't know if I'm really committed to get this guy a 5-year contract, because here's the scary part. The scary part is if he stays and signs the max, but then Klay decides to leave and go to the max, maybe with the Clippers, because I don't see, and we'll talk about the Lakers, I don't see anybody going there anytime soon. So he goes and decides to deal with the max with the Lakers.
Yeah.
And the defense takes a step back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because
he has to be more in control of
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because we already seen that there was minor league beef between KD and Draymond.
Yeah.
Then there's a lot of people that will tell you and say, oh man, well, Klay hasn't really been the same over the last playoffs when KD was there, but now KD is gone and Klay's found his shot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I mean, and these are all legit questions, but once again, I'm not trying to talk about KD coming to the Knicks, even though I've seen 4 or 5 reports now saying that's pretty much etched in
I
stone.
I think it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah,
I think
and
he wants to be the man.
I think he wants to be the man, and he knows that he's not going to be that in Golden State.
No.
Golden State is starting to see that Steph Curry has now regained the throne, and I think the Warriors are better off. I think the NBA is better off, but time will tell. But I'm saying that Klay is very valuable, especially on the defensive side, and we're starting to see it in the first 2 games because Damian Lillard is not getting the same shots he was getting, I would say, against OKC, because he struggled shooting against Denver, but at least against OKC, he was lights out.
Yeah, and that Denver series was tough for him, and but to go back to this whole KD thing, I mean, I don't want people thinking that we're saying KD isn't the best or one of the best players in the world.
No,
He absolutely is one of the best players in the world, and in my opinion, the best player in the world.
Yes.
So I'm not trying to diss KD with saying that I think they're harder to guard when he's off the floor. I just think, first of all, when you give Steve Kerr, and he's proven it, without KD, that they had Harrison Barnes there for so long, and it was just so much easier flow-wise on the offensive side. And Draymond can get his hands on the ball and distribute, and you're able to see a little bit more of a fluidness to their game. Whereas, with KD, man, it's very cut and dry. Get him the ball, get out of his way. If they double team, be ready to shoot. And, this is just kind of the way that they've been operating since they brought him in. I think this whole KD era in their head played out way differently.
Right.
I think they saw KD come in and sort of be the third kind of dynamite scorer, and that everything was going to be fine because they were going to score 125 a game, and there was going to be no doubt that they were going to be, they were going to be there in the end. I think that 70, the 70 plus win season that obviously ended not the way that they were hoping. They saw that and then came back and were like, well, we can just do that every single year if we wanted to. And that sort of got them comfortable in the fact that we don't really have to run, the same type of plays. We don't really have to worry about, the defensive aggressiveness anymore. We can be a little bit more, focused on getting our guys going. And you said it best. I mean, Steph wasn't shooting the ball really well when KD was doing well, and Klay seemed to be, dropping off at certain points too. So, to me, the worst thing that could happen here, if you're Portland, is a bad first quarter.
Yep.
Because if you come out tonight and Klay goes crazy or Steph goes crazy or, even to a certain extent, they don't even have to go crazy offensively because they've got the type of setup now where they're going to spread the ball around. We saw it with like Jerebko, and we saw it with, Jordan Bell's getting dunks in the lane. And
Sean Livingston is giving great minutes off the bench.
So if you're Steve Kerr, you don't really have to do too much at this point, right? You're gonna formulate your game plan and have them execute. Try your best to keep Steph, fresh on both sides. I think the part of the problem with Steph is that obviously his, he had his finger injury and everything like that. But in order for Steph to be invested in the game, I think he has to be shooting well.
Right.
And I think when he's not shooting well, it tends to fall apart on both sides of the floor. And he needs to come out, and I think they need to get him going early. And I think they did that with Clay over the last couple of games, where they said, let's get Clay some play early, and let's make sure he's getting his shot. And even if he's missing, we'll keep feeding it to him. But me personally, I think this series is probably over.
Right.
Again, it's not necessarily a foregone conclusion, because Portland has a chance with 2 home games here to step up, win 2 in a row, and try and make this a 3-game series. But when it comes down to it, man, I think Steph is too good. And I think right now, if the scary part is if Clay and Steph can both get going and both have that shot going, obviously teams are going to be focusing more on the perimeter, and now they have so much more that they can do inside when KD's not in there, because you've got these guys like Bell and Green and Livingston and Iguodala. I mean, man, props to Iguodala, man. That last play, that's a guy who's a veteran who used his savvy, good hands. Was there contact? Yeah. Enough to call a foul? Probably not. I don't think so. So, Iggy, man, that's another big guy for them. And to speak on the free agent stuff, if you're KD, man, this team, you're sitting in the locker room and you're looking on it. Does this team really need me? I mean, I can just, and he can still maintain his good relationship with them and everything like that. I don't think there's going to be any bridges burned. I think at the end of the day, it's probably beneficial for both of them to part ways.
I think so too.
I think Golden State will have a better shot at bringing back Clay too. I think if you, it's not necessarily even a money thing. Obviously, having a max contract going away and not needing to worry about that, you can cater to Clay, and then you can also bring in some guys next year to help you out, in the meantime. But I think it's probably beneficial for both of these, two parties to split after the year.
I agree. As a Knicks fan, I agree.
And I want to jump in because, there's really not much analysis to do. We kind of talked about it last week. I think both of these series, I think it's going to be Milwaukee and Golden State.
I think so too.
And
I think so too.
One of those things where, I don't think Durant's going to be playing. I think it's probably, I would hope that Durant doesn't play because I want to see a good series.
If it does become Milwaukee and Golden State, it will almost remind me. And a lot of people who might just be anybody. Okay, I'm 35. I'll be 36 in June, right? I remember the days of when the Lakers and Celtics used to go at it all the time, and then you had that little drop off where the Lakers took on Detroit, and then the Blazers took on Detroit, and then the Lakers came back to glory, but then they lost to the Bulls. This is what I feel like this is about. You had they try to make Golden State and Cleveland be that rivalry, and now you're bringing in a new, fresh team like Milwaukee to take on the Golden State Warriors, and they kind of play similar games, and if they do match up, the question then becomes that Giannis is going to go one-on-one with Draymond Green, their best scorer against their best defender. So once you cancel those out, it just becomes the other guys. And I think Milwaukee becomes a matchup nightmare, believe it or not, for the Golden State Warriors. If we see Game 1 Brook Lopez from the Eastern Conference Finals, because Andrew Bogut isn't the spring chicken that he used to be when he was the number 1 pick for the aforementioned Milwaukee Bucks. This man can barely make 15, 20 minutes on the court. So if Brook Lopez is just out there just dead chilling and he's knocking down threes, it's gonna be a fun series to watch. So it's just like, as much as I miss LeBron being in the playoffs, I just feel like a Milwaukee versus Golden State finals, it's just gonna be money in the bank. I really do. I think it's gonna be so good,
and it's gonna be a good way for the NBA to sort of market the the growing beast that is Giannis, and especially. I think Giannis has a chance to be the best player of all time. That's just me personally. He's got a long, long road ahead of him here.
Yes.
But I think he has that potential. I mean, again, going back to the guy who, from Greece, who barely started playing basketball before he got drafted, to now, the progression that we've seen out of this guy is crazy.
It's
and
crazy.
The mentality changed too, because 2 years ago he was sort of Giannis that we know right now,
right.
But the timidness and sort of the I'm not sure if I should do this, and sort of giving up a little bit of power to guys around him, and props to the Bucks for surrounding him with the right amount of talent. They did a great job of that.
And gotta give big time credit to Budenholzer.
Budenholzer for sure.
Yeah.
And this is not Hawks Budenholzer either, right? This is a guy who he knows exactly what he wants his team to do on every possession.
Right.
And it shows in the way that they play. At the same time, though, with Milwaukee, right? They've got a really, again, we're making the assumption that they're going to be making it to the finals here, but if we're going to make that assumption and think it's safe, I think it's one of those things where Milwaukee has to come out and try and punch Golden State in the mouth, so to speak, right?
Right.
We hear that expression a little bit. You don't want to try, you don't want Brook Lopez to go in a shooting contest with Steph and Clay, right? So you need to be able to, Giannis has to be the guy that sort of sets the tone, right? Go down low and try your best to, because we already know that Golden State's going to be doubling Giannis, and they're going to be trying to force other guys to do it. They're going to make sure Bledsoe is the guy that's taking shots from the perimeter. They're going to make sure that Middleton is not going to get the shot from the perimeter. He's going to have to drive to the hole. They're going to do certain things that are going to be able to neutralize them to a certain extent. Milwaukee has to come out and play with a certain amount of grit and sort of physicality that we haven't seen from them quite yet, because again, they haven't had the need to.
Right.
But that's the only way I see them surviving the series, to be quite honest. They've got to really, they can't get caught in the trap of playing Golden State's game. And we talked about this with Portland. They tend to do that when they play them. Even in the regular season, they try and have a shooting contest with them, and that's not going to work.
You're not
going to win a shooting contest with Golden State.
No.
You've got to find a way to neutralize their offense and do your best on the offensive side of the ball to take efficient shots and make sure that you're not just chucking up shots to make this, they shot a three, we need to shoot a three now too. So that's going to be interesting, but we've got a lot of stuff when it comes to draft and free agency, so I kind of want to jump into that.
Let's do it.
There's, again, the NBA draft lottery happened on Tuesday.
Yes.
Hopefully a lot of you guys were watching Nick's stream. I know I was, because obviously it was a big day for both of our franchises.
Yes.
I think the Knicks were favored number one, even though, and this is something that I'm going to ask you about because I'm not sure about, even though they are tied for the percentage, I think them and three other teams had 14%.
Okay, so it was
right?
them, Phoenix, and Cleveland had a 3 worst record, so they had a 14% chance.
Got it.
And then the Bulls had the 4th worst record, so they had a 12.5% chance.
Okay, so that's to me. I think both of us made the assumption. Well, the Knicks got the the worst record in the league. They're gonna probably
Like you said, if this was not Adam Silver, who's the genius before?
If
this was Stearns NBA,
yeah.
The Knicks have number 1 pick.
Yeah,
We're not
Lakers have
even
number 2, and the Bulls have number 3. Yeah.
Easily, or Phoenix or the Cavs, or maybe more or less the Cavs.
Yeah.
Seeing how they want to resurrect that franchise all of a sudden. They probably would have had the number 2 pick.
Sure.
So yes, but this was Adam Silver's, and he wanted to stop the whole tanking nonsense.
Yeah.
So he decided to make the 3 worst teams have the best record, have the best chances.
Yeah.
And then that 4th team had that outside chance looking in.
Now, what happened was, we watched it play out, and right from the beginning, things started to kind of, change up. You saw, the Lakers move into the top 4. You saw.
Let me see if I get this draft order.
Yeah, please do, because, if my memory's serving me correctly, you had within the first 3 balls drawn, 2 teams that all of a sudden had a shot when they didn't think they would, and the Lakers specifically. I thought they were going to be in the top 10 maybe if they were lucky.
Right.
They make it into the top 4. The Bulls draw number 7, which was, one of the worst, scenarios that could have happened. And then, just to, put it in a nutshell, New Orleans, the Knicks, the Grizzlies, and the Lakers end up with the chance at the top 4. And basically, when it's all said and done, the New Orleans Pelicans find a way to make it to the number 1 pick.
Okay, so this is how it happened. So
Yeah.
all right, so it would be the 14. Okay, so here we go. So Boston ended up getting the 14th pick.
That was somebody else's
but
pick,
it was
right?
it was Sacramento's pick.
Okay.
But if that pick somehow got into the top 5, I think Philly would have gotten it for some deal that they made.
There was a couple of actually 4 separate picks that were going to be affected by trades previously.
Right.
And if they jumped in the top 10 or top 4, it would basically either carry over or another team would get it.
Right. So then they got that. And then the Miami Heat ended up getting the 13th pick. And everything was cool. But
by then everything was fine. Yeah.
And then I'm trying to remember where. Okay, so then the Charlotte Hornets got the 12th pick, and then that's where all of a sudden the Los Angeles Lakers moved up to a guaranteed top 4 spot.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the game started getting crazy. Then Minnesota, all these ads. Okay, Minnesota end up getting the 11th pick. Then the Atlanta Hawks, I think when Atlanta, because that pick actually belonged to Dallas, and that's the pick they got for the Doncic trade.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, I think it was Memphis all of a sudden moves up, and they're now in the top 4. So then the crowd starts winning on, and everyone starts getting nervous.
Yeah.
Then it was about 9 goes to Washington, and then I think when 8 came up, that's when New Orleans came in.
Yep.
So now 3 teams that weren't even supposed to be in the top 3 are now in the top 3, so there's 1 spot left. And then this is where all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
Because then the Bulls end up giving the 7th pick. And I was on Facebook looking at them comments between my own stream and Bulls fans on my Facebook.
Yeah.
Pissed as all hell.
Yeah, me too.
Then the Phoenix Suns end up getting the 6th pick. But when Cleveland got called for the 5th pick, boom, New York gets in that 4th. And if you was watching the Bear Cave, you saw me go nuts because I got nervous.
Yeah.
Because there was people talking mad stuff, talking about watch the Knicks are going to get screwed,
Top 5,
and they're going to be the one outside looking in. I'm like, stop jinxing my team. F you. It's not my fault that your team is salty. Stop hating on my squad. So Bulls fans salty, Suns fans salty, Cavaliers fans salty. So then we get in the top 4. Then LA gets the 4th pick. I'm feeling great. Number 3, New York Knicks.
Yeah.
And that's where the Knicks fans, oh my God, we can't do anything right. We got the 3rd pick.
As if the Knicks had any say in how the ping pong balls came out. Yeah.
And this is why I'm going to be clowning them and tell them to calm down. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then it went Memphis. And then New Orleans automatically gets the number 1 pick. So then this is where the whole game gets weird. Because everyone's like, ooh, now that New Orleans got the number 1 pick and they're going to get Zion,
they can trade AD.
AD won't go anywhere.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was the original thought was, he'll stay now and play with Zion. And
that story did not take 5 minutes. And Anthony Davis was like, I still want out of here.
Yeah, he told his guys, hey, you should probably put out the press release.
Go ahead and put out, right. Let's not play no games.
Yeah.
And here's the funny thing, because now there were multiple people saying that there is a very small chance that Zion Williamson will return to Duke because maybe he doesn't want to play for New Orleans.
And that got squashed right
That got squashed real quick.
Yeah.
But then you get a guy like Colin Cowherd, who I swear to God, I keep clowning this fool, who comes out and says that Zion should pull an Eli and a John Elway.
Which you can't. Let me. I just want to. I've heard this so many times, and I know this isn't directed at you, but people who say this need to really understand the difference between the sports.
Right.
Okay? Zion is not going to give up his NBA dream to basically be salty about who he got with.
Right.
The NFL is completely different than the NBA when it comes to the draft.
Yes.
Okay? Eli could afford to do that, and NBA players simply can't.
Right.
Okay? Zion is not going to say, well, I'm just going to stop playing basketball now and you know,
Until you trade me.
basically people don't realize that New Orleans can select him and just, if he doesn't want to play, tough shit.
Yeah.
He won't play then.
Yep.
And we just will have his rights for 4 years.
Yep.
So you know, people with the whole, well, yeah, don't worry, Zion's never going to do that. He has no choice.
Right.
Okay? And
Right.
that's why I was happy that his stepdad came out and said what he did, which was that he's excited to play with New Orleans. He already had talks with the organization. You know, they've made some wholesale changes. I talked about how, you know, they're sort of the redheaded stepchild of New Orleans, you know, with the Saints and the Benson family who owns both teams, you know, sort of like thought of the Pelicans as just their side business. You know, think of it as the Reinsdorf with the White Sox and the Bulls. So, you know, when that happened and Zion saw that he was going to be he knows he's going to be the number one pick, first of all, right?
Right.
He has no choice in it. If you know, if everything's shaked out and the Lakers got the first pick, great. If the Knicks got the first pick, great. If Cleveland got the first pick, great. If Memphis got the first pick, great. Because he has no choice.
Right.
He's going to come in, he's going to play 4 years with a team and do really well. And if he wants to leave after that, he can.
Right. Because
that's just the way that the league works.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. So yeah,
No, you're good.
with everything that happened, obviously, I want to talk about a little bit about the Bulls before we jump into the Knicks full
Go
throttle.
ahead.
Because
Go ahead.
you know, the Bulls obviously had the short end of the stick here. Number 7, you're going to miss out on that top 3. You know, we talked about it a little bit. It's Zion, it's Ja, and then R.J. Barrett. There's a couple other guys who are sort of, you know, sort of creeping up into the top 5.
Like
which
Cam Reddish is up
Cam
there.
Reddish. I know Kobe White is another guy that people are really
White's
big.
another one.
I'm
The
really
kid
big on
from,
Kobe White. I would love it. Yeah, I want him to fall to the Bulls, so I don't want to jinx him.
There's
going
Jared
top
Culver
4.
that's up there.
Jared Culver, great
Hughes,
shooter from Texas Tech. Yeah, and
Darius
then
Garland,
yeah, and I know people are saying that the Lakers are pretty much a foregone conclusion. They want to select Garland because they know that Barrett, Zion, and Ja will be gone by then. To me, the Bulls are in a really tough position here. You have to almost take like the best player available type of thing because, you know, I would love for Kobe White to drop to us. I think he might. I think he has a chance to go to 7. I don't think that's what Garpax is going to do because they're idiots. But I quite frankly think the Bulls are in a tough position right now because they've got to try and build this team to win in the next couple of years.
Right.
Or else this is going to be, you know, 3 or 4 years in the making of nothing.
Right.
So the Bulls really are the one. If you're a Knicks fan and you're mad, you know, talk to a Bulls fan and see how they feel about how we did because the number 7 pick is a great pick. You're going to get, you know, one of the top 10 players in the draft, but you know, to be on the outside of that number 4 of that top 4 looking in is a tough thing, especially because of how top heavy this draft is.
Right.
You know, we talked about it being deep, and I saw a couple of people who said, you know, this isn't the deepest draft, and usually you'll see guys who are going the second round that will usually go in the first round, and that this won't be that you know, that type of draft. I disagree. I'm seeing all these mock drafts with players going in the 20s and you know late in the first round that, you know, in any other year would probably be a top 15.
Yep.
So to me, maybe the draft is top heavy. Maybe the talent is sort of, you know, skewed to the first round.
Right.
But I mean, I see guys in the mock draft that are late in the. I mean, even like, you know, there's a couple of interesting guys in the middle, like, you know, Bol. I talked about him. I know he's got injury problems and he's like 210 pounds for a 7'2" guy, but
if he stays healthy, though.
I mean, my good, and this is a guy. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. This is a guy maybe in the early 2000s that would probably go in the top 3 no matter what happened.
Yep.
You know, because people were so obsessed with height and length and, you know, shooting combination.
And stuff like that.
So this is a guy who might have gone in the top 4 a couple years ago. Now people you're saying he probably will slip into the, you know, late teens if anything. So you know, the Bulls right now are in a tough position. They've got most of their starting lineup sort of, you know, set. Obviously, point guard is a big point of need for us, so I'm hoping we can draft a point guard. I'm hoping a guy like Garland maybe drops. I don't know. Maybe, you know, Lakers trade out of that pick. I know that the Lakers love Garland, and Garland said that the Lakers are his favorite team. So we'll see about that. But I do want to transition to the Knicks. Okay,
cool.
Because the Knicks obviously didn't get the first pick. Obviously, you know, they're going to lose out on Zion. They're going to lose out on Ja. We talked about that. That's tough. But they got a sort of a consolation prize with RJ, and they also have flexibility here because this is something I talked to you about. They've got some sort of flexibility now, both financially and personnel-wise, right?
Yep.
They have the ability now to go out and make serious inquiries about Anthony Davis. They can go out and make serious inquiries about guys like, let's just say, like, you know, Conley in Memphis is going to be on the block. A couple of other guys are going to be on the block, and the Knicks will have the chance to go out and get them. I think the most interesting thing to me right now is that New Orleans is gonna have to be in a rebuild mode sooner or later, right?
Yes.
They can't continue to just, you know, let AD sit and just let him go for nothing, right?
Right.
To me, the Knicks are in a great position right now because New Orleans has a chance to pair up Zion with his, you know, one of his good friends and his college teammates in RJ Barrett. And they can do that by trading with the Knicks. And the Knicks can get AD and still have enough for a second max contract.
Yep.
You might have the chance to pair AD with Kevin Durant or Klay Thompson or Kemba Walker. I know we talked about the logjam at point guard. So, to me, people who are freaking out about not getting the first pick, tough shit, right?
I'm on that boat.
You're not going to get the number one pick every year. I mean, you know, you're talking to a guy who got the first pick when we had like a 1.3% chance when the Rose thing happened. It's great to get the first pick, right? But that's how this thing works, right? You either get it or you don't.
Right.
And if you don't get it, you move on with your life, okay?
Right.
So Knicks fans got to move on with their lives and realize that now the options are a little bit more plentiful. So first and foremost, what was kind of your immediate feeling when you saw that you guys got the number 3 pick?
I'm not gonna front. I was a little devastated because I thought I was super hyping it up, thinking that we was gonna get.
I did too. I thought it was top 2 for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was a foregone conclusion we was gonna get it. And then when we got the 3rd pick, I was kind of giving some scenarios on the show, but I was still kind of bummed that we didn't get it, right?
Yeah.
So after taking a few hours to kind of sit, as a matter of fact, I wouldn't even say a few hours. I slept on it. And then I woke up the next day, and then I saw that AD said that he still wants out of New Orleans.
Yeah.
And then a lot of things started coming to me. And then I had put on your Facebook wall, because Knicks fans were really pissing me off, just boo-hooing. That's what it looked like. Like when I'm reading it.
Kids bickering about,
Shut up. And then that's when I put on your wall, and I was like, bro, I cannot wait till Saturday. And the reason why I put that to you is because I had so many scenarios. So this is how I broke this down.
Yeah.
Okay. And I thought about this last night, and I have like this whole spiel on how I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember what I said earlier in the show, that the Milwaukee Bucks were going to come up again.
Yeah.
The New York Knicks, people are like, oh, the Knicks have a good young core.
They do.
But then you get the idiot Knicks fans like, we only won 15 games. Okay, that's because they're all young. We weren't.
And they were trying to win 15 games. They weren't trying to win games last year, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Once again, that's Knicks fans not winning anything for a long time.
Yeah.
They talk stupid.
Yeah.
Okay? And don't question my Knicks fandom, because I've been a Knicks fan since 92. And trust me, I understand. But for a guy that does a show, that watches basketball, that has to understand from the outside looking in, you know, sometimes you have to be smart about things. So the first thing I see is the 3rd pick. New Orleans has the 1st pick. Let's give up the 3rd pick for AD.
Yeah.
Now, Anthony Davis is what, 29 going on 30, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not necessarily known to be healthy all the time, too.
That's what I'm finna pull up right now.
Yeah.
Let me pull this up right now. I need to figure out.
And while you do that, I do want to say, because with AD, right, I think I have this certain infatuation with AD myself because of the potential and what he's shown over his first couple of years in the league. And obviously, he was a guy who's been riddled with injuries. Even going back to Kentucky, he had injury problems. And, coming out, I think that was one of the things people said was he was sort of a fragile set.
Right.
So, that's worth mentioning, too, that this guy is not necessarily a guy who's going to, play 82 games for you automatically.
When did DeMarcus Cousins tear his ACL? Was that 2016?
That was with New Orleans in 2017.
2017?
Yeah.
Because they went to the playoffs that year.
They did.
Okay.
And he wasn't there to play with them, but yeah, they did make the playoffs that year, yeah.
Here's Anthony Davis gameplay since 2012. 2012, 64, 2013, 67, 2014, 68, 2015, 61, and 2016 and 17, he played 75. So I figured those 7 games were rest games.
Sure.
And then last year he got hurt, he plays 56.
Yeah.
So Anthony Davis has been in the league now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years and has played over 70 games twice.
That's pretty
So you're going to
alarming.
tell me that when I wake up and I see a trade scenario where the Knicks are going to give up the number 3 pick, Mitchell Robinson, Kevin Knox, and 2 of the Dallas first-round unprotected picks
That's
that they
excessive.
got in the KC, that they got in the Dallas KP trade
Yeah, that's excessive. That's
for a
excessive.
guy that's only played 70 games 2 years?
Yeah.
Nonsense.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I started thinking myself, and I said, okay, I'm thinking of 2 teams where the Knicks can't make this mistake, and the Knicks need to hang on to the young core.
Yeah.
And if they want to take a look at what's going on, all they have to do is look down the road in 10 minutes and look what happened with Brooklyn.
Yeah.
They traded 2-3 years of first-round picks to pick up KG and Paul Pierce, which turned into what? Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
And a couple they still have a pick from that, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Boston
Yes.
does, yeah.
Now, what makes this whole scenario hilarious is that once Brooklyn stopped being stupid and all they went out was they made a nice little trade to bring in D'Angelo Russell and they stuck and worked with a young core with a good coach, they went to the playoffs last year.
Yeah. And it wasn't that far removed from when people were like, Brooklyn sucks. So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what the Knicks need to do. Because I am not down with the Knicks trading Kevin Knox at all. I'm not down with it. I think it's a stupid move, and I think that they're going to they'll rue the day if they end up doing it. Because Kevin Knox last year, in the first 20 games or so that he played, I'm not saying
he was I mean, I had him in my fantasy team, and he was pretty, I mean, he was a guy who was playing a lot of minutes first and foremost, which a lot of people weren't expecting out of him.
Exactly.
And he's a guy who offensively was starting to show some things. So yeah, I agree.
Exactly. And he was doing the same Euro step that we keep seeing Giannis keeps doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Kevin Knox is the next Giannis Antetokounmpo. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that he is a poor man, and I see flashes. Because what I was doing before we was doing the show, I was looking at the stats between Giannis and Kevin Knox, right?
Yeah.
So Giannis first came into the league in 2013, and in 77 games played, he only averaged 7 points a game.
Wow.
Kevin Knox,
And how many minutes was that? I'm sorry. We said it earlier. How many minutes was he averaging?
25 minutes a game.
Which is pretty substantial. I mean, pretty substantial minutes.
Right. Kevin Knox last year, barring injury, played 75 games, averaged 29 minutes a game, scored around 13 points a game.
Okay.
And
they were both very raw, too. That was one thing that people said about Knox when the Knicks drafted him. People felt like they overdrafted him because he was raw. But same thing that they said about Giannis, right, was that, this guy is really raw and he's, skin and bones, and he's not, not going to be a guy that fills out his frame.
So let's do this. You go ahead and read the what you call it.
Yeah, no. So what I was going to say,
because I have another story that's going to tie on.
What I want to do is I do want to get a second here to talk about our sponsor, Hodgepodge.
Yes.
So are you moving, removing, or need space? Hodgepodge of Chicago has you covered. Home, business, office, industrial, retail, or construction sites, Hodgepodge does it all. On-demand storage with convenient pickup and delivery from and to your door with 48-hour notice. Junk removal. They'll remove your junk and keep it out of the waste stream. Self-storage services, secure storage in our own facility with 24/7 sensor-equipped monitoring. Sustainable hauling by repurposing, donating, or recycling the refuse we collect. We break the cycle of waste and help others in the process. Packing and unpacking, our professional movers will ensure that your possessions arrive safely at your doorstep. Moving protection is included, bonded and insured for your protection. If you're looking for storage or moving, choose Hodgepodge. Your unwanted items don't just end up in a landfill. They are donated to people who need them. So visit gohodgepodge.com. Again, that's gohodgepodge.com. Thank you.
Yes.
So, what I do want, please, because I want to get into this because, there's a lot of hoopla right now about what the Knicks need to do. Please tell me.
So let me tell you a little story. Story about my life, and it's gonna.
I love it. Let's do it.
So you know how when the new year comes around, everyone's like, "Oh my God, 2019 is gonna be my
resolution,
year, my resolution. Yeah. I'm gonna make it my bitch."
Yeah. 2020 is my year. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Here's what I did. When 2018 was coming to an end, I said that I was going to use 2019 as a stepping stone to make any goals that I wanted to do in 2020. Okay? So the word that I have had pounded in my head, every once in a while I fall off the tracks, but I'm a human being, life happens, is patience.
Yeah.
You have to show patience.
Yep.
Okay? That's what the Knicks have to do.
Yeah.
The Knicks, okay, if it's a foregone conclusion that we're bringing in Kevin Durant, fine. If it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to bring in Kyrie, fine. But if I'm looking at my young core and I'm going to say that I can have a Kevin Knox that's like 6'9", 6'10", if I can bring in an RJ Barrett, who I swear up and down reminds me so much of Paul George, and we see what Paul George is doing right now.
Paul George
you get what I'm saying? Yeah. Like a poor man's Paul George. I'm looking at what can he do for me in 3 years. And I'm talking about you're going to bring in a KD. And I don't think, and maybe KD is not so much the mentoring type per se, but at its stage in his career, it could really help out. But you're now going to mentor a kid that's 6'7" and is going to be growing, 6'10" and is going to be growing, and your young core is surrounded by RJ Barrett. Hopefully Frank Ntilikina can find out his 3-and-D. Kevin Knox, who I'm telling you is a poor man's Giannis, and if once his offense really starts to flourish, you'll see why he was the number 8 pick. Then you're going to give me Mitchell Robinson, who led the league last year in blocks. Yeah. And then maybe you can make
Trier,
ISO Zoe.
Yeah.
I want to keep the core, because if I'm looking at Brooklyn and I see what Brooklyn's doing, and Brooklyn has D'Angelo Russell and a bunch of young core players, but there are a bunch of guys that have been together for a long time, or at least for a couple of years. Yeah. They know each other. They respect Kenny Atkinson, and they were good enough for the 6th seed in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Man, the Knicks and the fans have to show patience. And I don't think that them getting a 3rd pick was bad, because if RJ Barrett, for a guy who averaged almost 23 points last year, I know that he kind of struggled going down the stretch. They tried to make him the man, but he was still a freshman. So at the end of the day, I'm not down for the Knicks making a Los Angeles Lakers desperate deal. I think they need to stick with RJ Barrett. And now here's the crazy thing. The crazy thing is that there are some mumblings, not a lot, but some mumblings that maybe, who is it? Memphis, we'll see what they do at number 2. Because I know that it's the foregone conclusion that it's going to be Ja. Yeah.
Well,
but if you can't move that Conley contract,
right?
Do you at that point go after RJ, a 6'7", 2 or 3, and work with Mike Conley? I don't see it happening.
Well, they had the chance to trade Conley, right? When they traded Gasol, they had the chance to
that he was going to Detroit.
And they kept him, right?
Right.
So that leads you to believe that they see him as a part of this team for the near future. And I don't know if they see him being there when they're good again.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, I think everyone's pretty much assumed 99% of the time that Ja is going to go there.
Right.
They could surprise some people. I personally think it's set in stone right now.
You can't pass it up. And then I also read something where the Knicks could trade down to the Hawks, who have 8 and 10.
Yeah.
They could trade down with another team. I'm not feeling that. I'm just saying that I like my young core of when we ever figure out our point guard situation, because it's a flipping mess.
Yeah.
But RJ Barrett at the 2, Knox potentially at the 4, Mitchell Robinson at the 5. I'm trying to keep the young talent, let them grow. Yeah. You brought in Fizdale for a reason. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Fizdale, for what it's worth, did the best job he could. But now you're going to bring in a couple of veterans, because the Knicks are going to sign somebody. They're going to bring in somebody.
For sure.
And you bring in all that to a young core team. Just the Knicks, the fans have to show patience. Like, I understand the frustration. We haven't been in the playoffs since 2012. Yeah. Fine, I understand that. I get it. And it's New York. But at the same time, I'm going to show patience and maybe even look to 2020 if I have to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You can't automatically just look at next year as the year.
Right, because everyone's going to be, well, we won a championship and it's been too long. You got to take baby steps when it comes to this stuff.
That's also the pressure.
Even when the Miami Heat went out and got the big 3,
right,
they made the playoffs still.
Yeah, and that's the pressure that comes with saying we're going to sign 2 max players, right?
Right.
When you say we're going to sign 2 max players, the assumption is that, okay, they're going to be ready to win then. And that's not always true.
And like that's why some of these guys that are on these shows, like Stephen A. Smith, for example, claims himself to be a Knicks fan, but then you come out here and act like
he's from Philly.
I don't know. I don't know.
Sacrilegious.
And I'm just sitting here thinking, well, it's sacrilegious. I'm from Chicago.
Oh, that's
I'm a
true.
Knicks fan.
Don't worry, we'll leave you out of this. We'll leave you out of this.
And he's sitting around here screaming how he's suffering because the Knicks didn't get the number 1 pick. Okay, the ping pong balls didn't go our way. Yeah. So let's start looking outside of the box and how we can live life without Zion.
Right.
So basically what I'm seeing is, and I know that Zion is a freak, but I feel like there was more hype in the Zion boat than anything else, for him to come to New York. But I can get I don't want to say equally, but I can get a really good player out of RJ Barrett at 3 who's long, who can shoot, who can get to the rim, and in 2 or 3 years of seasoning can really be a good player for a team and a franchise that's been suffering.
Things could have been way worse. Things could have been way worse.
Like, look at it like this.
Even 4 would have been exponentially worse for the Knicks.
We could have been the Bulls, Suns, and Cavs.
Yeah, absolutely. And now
if there's
all 3
any
teams
3
are stuck
teams,
now.
right. So if we're sitting here crying about us not giving number 1, let's talk to Bulls, Suns, and Cavs fans to see how they feel.
They're on suicide watch.
You feel what I'm saying? So what are you crying for?
And let me just say this. I love Zion. I think he's going to be a freaking amazing player.
Yes.
Do I think that his game is sustainable with that size and that jumping, like that leaping ability?
Right.
Probably not. I think maybe, he's got to, first of all, he's got to get a shot, right? I think that was something that people said out of Duke was that, he's a guy that's inconsistent with his shot, but once he gets his shot together, he'll be fine. He's a 4 in this league. He's not going to be shooting a ton of shots.
Yeah.
He's going to be relying a lot on his athletic ability. And to me, if the guy doesn't find a way to shift his game away from just being the guy that jumps out the gym and uses 280 pounds, he's gonna have a rude awakening in the league in another couple of years when people start to adjust to that.
And you know who that reminds me of? The Rain Man.
Oh yeah, Sean. Yeah.
Sean Kemp. When you look at Sean Kemp highlights,
oh my God, he looked like Zion. The one where he dunks and looks, points at the dude. That's Zion right there.
In a heartbeat. There's 2 guys when Sean Kemp. The description you just made reminded me of Sean Kemp, and then I saw a video of Larry Johnson.
Yep. LJ.
And Larry
we talked about this.
And LJ was the same way. Same built, 6'7", 280 something.
Yeah.
But what's the name? Larry Johnson figured out his shot as the leaping ability, didn't sustain. Yeah. And that's why I'm saying when you're as a Knicks fan, when you sit down and the dust settles and everything clears out and you now know that you have the number 3 pick and there's an athletic 6'7" guy right there. It's like this. The NBA is a wing league.
Yeah.
Okay, the NBA is a wing league.
That.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And as much as, the days of Hakeem and Pat and Shaq and give me another
Duncan,
center. And David Robinson and Tim Duncan and KG to an extent.
Yeah.
Those guys are done.
Yeah.
That center stuff is done. Okay.
Now you barely see two centers play in the same on the same team anymore. You have one center who plays in probably two or three forwards who are gonna pop in there. So it's a positionless league too as well. So this whole idea of centers is sort of going out of the window.
It's going out of the window.
Yeah.
So and I know we talked about Bo. There's also a kid from UCF who I've seen play many a time. Taco Fall.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to be a stud. I don't know if you've seen any of the the little Facebook in the gym videos.
No.
But Thon Maker's cousin, Maker, I think his name is. This kid's like 7'5", but handles and shoots threes like a guard.
That's the new breed. That's
the new breed.
Yeah.
So my thing is the NBA's turned into a wing league. And when we talk about some of the best teams in the NBA, when you talk about Golden State, outside of Steph, Clay. When you talk about Toronto, Kawhi. When you talk about Philly, outside of Joel Embiid, buckets for the fact that, for what it's worth that he's being there. Yeah. When I could keep going on. When I talk about Oklahoma City, outside of the fact of, what's his name? Russ, yeah. PG. I'm naming all these wings. CJ McCollum deserves outside of Dame, CJ. I could keep going on and on.
It's a league where you essentially will play sometimes 3 or 4 wings on the floor at the same time.
And I'll even go as far as Chicago because Zach LaVine is really coming into his own.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? And everyone has that wing.
Right.
The Knicks don't have that wing.
Right.
But at 3, outside of them, if Kevin Durant comes in, you can get that wing.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, okay? Because I mentioned this on your Facebook post, and I think I said it earlier in the show here, but I saw something that was really interesting that's saying New Orleans is intrigued by the idea of pairing up Zion with RJ. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's going to take a trade with the Knicks or the Grizzlies. I don't think the Grizzlies are going to pass up on Ja.
I don't think so either.
So, really the only thing that could work now is trading the number 3 pick to New Orleans. Obviously, they would have to get back a considerable haul. The Knicks would, because if you're going to get AD back, that's one thing, right?
Right.
So they don't really have any other pieces to give other than AD. So if we're talking about a trade, and let's say for example, okay, I know the list that you gave off. I mean, to me, that's ridiculous. To give up Robinson and Knox and the 2 picks. And I think I saw somebody say, well, throw DSJ in there too. No, right?
Right.
But let's say, for example.
Or even Frank for that matter.
Frank, yeah. And yeah, again, especially because of the Knicks right now, they want to try and play around with the contracts a little bit, right? You want to keep Ntilikina on his rookie deal because it gives you flexibility to bring in those 2 maxes, right?
Yep.
So let's say, for example, okay, New Orleans says we're going to cut our losses. We're going to trade you AD. And we want back the number 3 pick. We want back Mitchell Robinson. And we want back one of Dallas's. Let's say both of Dallas's first-round picks.
I might pull the trigger.
You might pull that trigger?
I might.
Because to me, the ideal situation that could happen for the Knicks here is you could bring in AD before free agency really gets alive and kicking.
Right.
And you would have so many more options, right?
Right.
Because right now it's like we have to get KD, right? Because he's the best player of it. If you're able to bring in Anthony Davis and you're able to not give up so much to get him, whereas you're really stripping your whole team to get him.
Right.
You'll still have Knox in place. You'll still have obviously DSJ. Maybe you'll have to give up Mitch, like we talked about. That's probably something that's going to be, a must for that trade. But if you can get AD in there, right, you're going to be able to convince guys like, Durant, or even again, if I'm like Klay Thompson, I know LA is really, really, the Clippers are really sort of, tempting thing for a guy like him. You don't have to move too far from home. You get to stay, in California and be the guy on the team. I personally think a guy like Klay would consider New York because, if you think about it, with DSJ and now you add Klay and you have Knox and you have Anthony Davis and you bring in a couple of other bigs, this is a team that can start competing in a 1 or 2 year stretch.
True, because if I read collectively, what's his name from Orlando? Nikola Vucevic.
Yeah,
is a free
he's
agent
another guy.
too.
Yeah, he's another, and he's a guy who probably isn't going to be looking for a full max. So you may be able to pull it off and get another guy with him too. So I guess my real question here is that, you know, if AD is able to kind of come in and you traded the number 3 pick, you're going to be giving up RJ. You're going to be obviously giving up Mitchell Robinson, and you're giving up 2 picks, which, I mean, 2 first-round picks. You know, I don't think Dallas is going to be
unprotected.
Yeah,
on top
unprotected.
Of that.
Yeah, and also, you know, I don't think Dallas is going to be that bad, but I don't think it's also a foregone conclusion that they're going to be great.
Right.
So you never know where those picks are going to fall. They could fall in the top, you know, in the lottery, and you never know what happens. So, you know, I guess the real question is AD worth it for you as a Knicks fan if you're giving up the right? Because, again, we talked about it. This is a guy who can't stay on the floor.
Right.
He's a guy who, you know, he does have, and let's be honest with each other here. He does have stretches even when he is healthy where you're like, is he okay?
Right.
You know, is everything all right? You know, I know that when he's healthy, he has the potential to play like the best player in the league.
Right.
We know that.
Right.
Now, is it worth it here to take the gamble with all the assets you're going to have to give up? And the risk you're going to have to take here is you're going to have to get another max player in there and hope that it works. So I guess the question is, and also Cousins is in that. I know he's hurt right now, but Cousins is another guy that might be interesting. You get to pair him back up with Davis or something like that. So there's a lot of possibilities, but do you feel like Anthony Davis is worth the risk at this point?
You know, if Anthony Davis was... If he was like 26 or so,
right,
maybe I consider it.
No.
You know what? Hold on. Let me figure
He's
out.
coming up on 30.
Yeah.
He's coming up on 30.
Is he coming up on 30?
He's coming up on 30. I think he might be 28 or 29 if I'm not mistaken. And you
Figure out how
know,
old
it's hard
this man
to tell because these guys come out of high school or almost 1 year out of high school, and you know you like, especially AD. I mean, he was playing on Team USA when he was 19 years old, so he's got a lot of miles on him too. And that's another thing I talk about a lot in football, which people don't really realize, is that, you know, these guys in football, I mean, to talk about like rust or, you know, any sort of wear and tear that they have, these are guys that have been playing really heavily.
We lied.
Well, what is he?
He'll be 26.
26. Okay, so he's
26, be 26 and 68.
Because I mean,
so,
yeah,
okay, so
it means he would have had to be in the league for 10 years if he was 29 right
so he's
now.
26. Like, it's so... Man,
the injury stuff is really the key to that, right?
You know what team I'm thinking of right now? A team I'm thinking of right now is Boston.
Yeah.
Boston is a very good
destination
because, well, it's a team that, once again, I talked about Brooklyn, but I'm thinking of everything that you keep asking me. For some reason, Boston keeps coming in my head because Boston traded their old guys. To get fresh guys.
Sure.
But then when you brought in Brad Stevens, and then you made the risque trade of bringing in... Kyrie. See, okay, here's what I would do.
Yeah.
I don't know how Scott Perry will pull this off. But if somehow those 2 picks from Dallas don't get involved, I'd pull the trigger.
And you're saying, let's say, for example, it's Knox, Robinson, and the third three. The 3.
And I'm still keeping my 2 picks from Dallas.
That's not that bad of a haul.
It's not that bad of a haul
for
because
New Orleans either,
because think about it. When what did Boston do? They traded
Pierce and
got those. The whole Fultz trade.
Fultz, yep,
That's a prime example. They made the deal. They go. What did they move down?
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of factors in this.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors in this. Yeah.
I'm saying Boston has that mix of really good young talent, but was still able to bring guys to come in.
Yeah.
They made a good package to Cleveland just to bring in Kyrie,
and
but
didn't
still
give up
had
much.
picks.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
That's why I keep getting hung up. When they brought in Kyrie, they still had Kyrie, and then so you're like, okay, I'll give you our first round draft pick for Kyrie, but I still got these decent picks because Danny Ainge made some serious moves in finessing the Brooklyn Nets.
So you stockpile the picks, don't just give them up for nothing.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's where I feel that the Knicks is. So that's why I'm saying, okay, if it's well, it won't be Knox because I saw a report from Bleacher Report that said that New Orleans is not interested in him. Great. So if I have to give you Mitchell Robinson, and if I have to give you the third, and if I maybe have to give you Frank, or maybe one of our future picks in the future, because I'm on the fence with you. I'm not sure how good Dallas is really going to be. I know you brought in KP. Yeah. Fine. KP is a fine player. Yeah. I have the utmost respect for Kristaps Porzingis. I wish he would have showed patience. Yeah. Right. I wish he would have showed patience, but he didn't want to. Fine. He's no longer our problem. But at the same time, I feel like Rick Carlisle should have been fired damn near 3 years ago, and he still has a job. Yeah. So let me make sure I got this straight, Mark Cuban. You fired, Avery Johnson, because they got upset in the first round. You have barely sniffed the playoffs since your last championship, and Rick Carlisle still has a job? Yeah. Makes sense. Nonetheless, though, I'm with you. I don't know how good they're going to be. So you almost roll the dice. So if they're going to be good, and you know you're going to be good, you'll have two late round picks. If they suck and you're going to be good, you'll just be in the same boat as Boston. Yeah. You'll have their first round pick, and you got your own down there in the bottom. Yeah. So that's where I'm coming from.
And if you bring in two max guys, you need draft picks.
Yes.
Because you have to have cheaper contracts to bring in to pair with those two maxes, right? So it almost makes more sense that they value those Dallas picks more than they do guys like, let's say, for example, the 3 this year, or Mitch, or Knox, or whatever, Ntilikina.
And I really think that the Knicks are more interested in AD than I think, because they already came out and said that we're not trading AD to the Lakers.
Yeah.
New Orleans have already said, so they can come with any sweet deal they want to. It's not. Of all the teams, like especially in the top 5 teams, I think that New Orleans and New York at some point are going to make a deal. Yeah. I personally, if I'm Scott Perry, I'm against it, because I can't believe I'm saying this, I almost feel like this is Melo all over again.
Oh, okay.
Because remember when the Knicks and you know the records are different, but you got to remember, when the Knicks sucked for a little bit, but then they went out and they drafted Danilo Gallinari, and then they had picked up Raymond Felton, and it
wasn't. Team was not bad. They had Wilson Chandler.
And it was the same situation. I'm telling you, the patience. Yeah. Yes, they sucked. But once Mike D'Antoni, because people was like, oh my God, who's Danilo Gallinari? Oh, he's just drafting him because he played with his dad. But Mike knew Danilo. Yeah. So then once they kind of got everything plastered up together, Raymond knew his role. Danilo knew his role. Yeah. What's his name knew his role. That's when they fresh got Amari. He knew his role.
Amari was still going.
Gave a max contract to Amari Stoudemire. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's that thing where I feel like this could be Melo all over again. Because if you just bring in KD, and you and I were talking before the show, how there's now reports that teams are being wary against Kyrie. Yeah. And if Kyrie should have ever learned his lesson, just ask Manny Machado how long it took him to find him a team. Now, I know he got paid, but I'm telling you this.
In San Diego.
Exactly. I know when he woke up after the World Series, he did not think that he was going to be getting paid playing for the San Diego Padres. Yeah. He had his heart set on New York, but because you wanted to act like a dumbass in the World Series, now you can get paid by San Diego.
I thought that was overblown, to be quite honest.
I think so too, but I'm with you on that. Right. I thought it was too, but that's the excuse everyone gave. Sure. So now here we are. We fast forward, and Kyrie, as soon as he gets knocked out by Milwaukee, zooms off.
Yeah.
And now teams are like, are you really about the team? Are you really trying to get paid? And I would not be shocked for 1 second if the Knicks are in on that. Yeah. Because Kevin Durant said, even with a busted ACL or calf or whatever's wrong with me, I know New York finna pay me my money.
Oh, yeah. And you know, I think there's also a certain glamour. I think KD does understand the glamour and the sort of the aura of New York. Too.
Yes.
You know, the mecca of basketball.
Right.
And being able to, I think he's, and I don't want to put words in his mouth because I don't know this for sure.
Right.
But I do think that he does want to restore a little bit of what he lost with the move from OKC.
I think so too.
I think he wants to be
just
able
like
to say,
LeBron in Cleveland.
Exactly. I think he wants to be able to have the redemption story and say, see, I did it with my team and I came over here and they didn't have much and now I'm doing well with them. But at the same time, I agree with you, dude. I think right now, the assets that you have if you're the Knicks, right? You've got the assets now, and you can add 2 max players.
Right.
And you can bring in the number 3 pick. To me, that's a really, really, at the end of the day, add in any 2 players you want. Any combo of players. Let's say Clay and I don't think Clay and Durant would want to go together, but let's just say, for example, it's you draft RJ, you bring in Kyrie, and you bring in Durant. To me, that's a solid team on paper that's already looking at mid-tier in the East.
And then,
you're not worried about making the playoffs. You're going to make the playoffs in the East.
Exactly. And then if you factor in that the Knicks traded, you know what the smartest thing they did last year, and it's worth mentioning is when the Knicks traded KP, they brought in DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah.
And DeAndre Jordan could have went the Wesley Matthews route and bought him out. And he was like, "No, I'm gonna stay and mentor Mitchell Robinson."
And I think he liked New York too.
I think he did too.
Yeah.
And so now if you bring in these guys, you say, yo, DeAndre, I really want you to come in, be that guy off the bench for me.
I can't pay you, what you're
Here's
probably
the mid-level
pay.
exemption.
Yeah. Maybe give him a 1 year, maybe
no.
a 1 year bridge.
Right.
Say, hey, you know what? We can't give you much in the long term, but how about 1 year at the MLE and then you come in with a super team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is a chance for you to. I mean, I'm not saying we're gonna win the title, but I think we're gonna have fun this season. And I think that he would bite.
And I think the one thing that people really. The Warriors have given people this idea that you can't win right away in the NBA. I think, they obviously drafted Clay and they drafted Steph, and then they had like kind of these middling years. They weren't really all that great. And then pretty much all of a sudden, out of nowhere, with Steve Kerr, this team comes out and is this sort of new breed of team. And Clay is all of a sudden this confident shooter who's also one of the best defensive players. And you've got Draymond, who again is just such a hound on the defensive side. And you've got Bogut, who's done, who they almost traded Steph for Bogut, which I saw stuff about. So they traded Monte Ellis and got Bogut, and they had Harrison Barnes. So the work in progress here, you have to look at it in a 2 to 3 year window.
Right.
You can't look at things like with the Bulls is a perfect example. Do I think the Bulls right now are in a position to win a championship? No. But do I think that their next 2 to 3 years are in, better shape than what we were in the last 2 to 3 years? Absolutely.
I think
and
so
now
too.
you've got an opportunity to bring in, a couple of guys here, round out the team, and find who you want to be. And I think the Knicks have that same opportunity. They have the opportunity now to say, who do we want to be? Do we want to be the team with 2 max players who are surrounded by this kind of youth movement, or do we want to bring in our guys and say, okay, we'll bring, because I know the thing that I've been reading over the last couple of days is that the Lakers are not confident that they're going to be able to sign free agents, so they're going to try and target people in trades. I saw that they're going to try and, they said Kyle Lowry. I mean, that's a joke.
I saw
to
that too.
Like, I don't understand that, but I saw that they were like, they're going to start to explore things on the trade front more because they don't feel confident about people coming in free agency. I don't think the Knicks have that problem, to be quite honest.
No.
I think the Knicks are going to be able to sell the city and sell the team. And we talked about this last week. As long as James Dolan is somewhere with his band doing something, stay over there. And
I'm talking about with both teams too.
Yeah, and let Perry do his thing and let because at the end of the day, Fizdale, man, I think he's a really, really interesting guy.
Yeah.
And I think he's a guy who paid his dues with Miami, obviously paid his dues with the Grizzlies, and that didn't work out too well. And to be quite honest, I don't know why that didn't work out with the Grizzlies. I think the Grizzlies would have been, really smart to keep him around.
Right.
And the Knicks lucked out with him, man. There wasn't a ton of guys out there that were like next level guys. And I think Fizdale is that type of guy. He has the experience, and he's a guy that if you give him his team, he's gonna build them, right?
Yep.
We saw the like mini progressions that everybody made last year. Yeah, they only won 15 games. Yeah, they were basically blown out in a ton of their games, but they were also competitive in a lot of their losses too. And there were also the 15 games that they won. They're almost like landmark things where you can look back and say, wow, Knox really did well that game, or wow, when DSJ got traded over there, there were a couple games that you looked at them and went, wow, well, DSJ looks pretty comcomfortable, and DeAndre Jordan doesn't look too bad. And, oh my God, Mitchell Robinson has another like 7 blocks or something like that. So there's got to be this mentality switch this year for the Knicks, which is let's go about this with a 2 to 3 year window here.
Yes.
Okay, and let's not think what's going to get us to the playoffs next year and what's going to get us a championship next year.
No. You want to say what's get us to the playoffs. Let's not talk championship.
Okay, yeah, but
You know
here's
what
the
I'm
thing, though.
saying?
Even
Baby
playoffs.
steps. We got a baby step.
Because even playoffs, let me just say this. You're in the East already. You don't have to be thinking about playoffs, okay? Because if your team is good enough, you're going to have a shot at it either way, right?
Right.
The thing I'm saying is that the huge part of it is that and this has to do with just kind of our world in general in 2019, is wanting this immediate return, right? Everybody from every single sport, it almost seems like the fandom has gone from, we're going to trust the process to, I want to see results right now. And that's not going to happen. There's going to be road bumps. And let's be honest, it's not a foregone conclusion that they're going to bring in 2 max players yet. We talked about this. They may just say, you know what, screw this. We'll bring in 1 max player and we'll spread out the salary for a couple of, because let's be honest, they need it. I mean, they need another shooting guard, right? They need to be able to have another couple big men in there, because obviously DeAndre Jordan's not going to come in cheap. So to me, man, the vision has to be long term, and both of our franchises right now, if you're not looking at this with rose-colored glasses, but are in decent positions right now to take a step forward and find out how to make the playoffs and how to build this team into what you want them to be.
Let me ask you a question.
Yep.
The Lakers come to you and ask for Lonzo Ball for the 7th overall pick. You doing it?
Me personally, probably not, because I think there's a shot that Kobe White would be there. I also think there's a shot that you'll be able to maybe get a better haul. I saw the Lonzo Ball to the Bulls thing. I'm not a huge fan of it because I don't think, first of all, Chris Dunn is going to be in a contract year this coming year. I think he's going to come out and try and win a starting gig, and I think he's going to try and play like every other NBA player does when they're on a contract year,
right,
which is out of their mind.
Right.
I don't have anything against Lonzo. I think, let's be honest with each other here. When he was on the floor last year with the Lakers were pretty damn good.
Yes,
okay?
Especially defensively.
Defensively, I mean, he was really, really solid, and he grew a lot of chemistry with his teammates. And at the end of the day, when he went, I know LeBron got hurt, but when he got hurt, that was the turning point for that team, because then Rondo had to step in, and it was just kind of like a scattered
he's a shell of
himself.
and
at the same time, Rondo, to me, man, he's a guy that you put on the bench and let him talk during timeouts, but he's not a guy that should be getting 30 minutes a game anymore.
No.
So, to answer your question, if it happens, I'm not going to be exactly upset. I just think value-wise, that's not where we want to go right now. I think there's just as much value as holding on to the 7th pick and taking a 19-year-old guy in Kobe White, who's like 6'7" or something like crazy like that. He's got he's really tall. He's got a good, to me, he was what made that North Carolina team go. I mean, if you watch them against Duke, Kobe White was the guy that was really killing Duke. So I love Kobe White. I also love Darius Garland. I know he's probably going to be a shoo-in for the Lakers at 4.
Yeah.
I just, I'm not exactly sold that we can't. Now let's just say this: if the Lakers say we'll give you,
he's 6'5",
he's 6'5", so let's just say we give the Lakers say, how about this? We'll give you Lonzo and a protected pick next year for the 7. I might consider that because, in this day and age of metrics and, really the advanced stats holding and reigning true, I think the advanced metrics will tell you that you probably are lacking on the value side for just a straight up trade.
Right.
So let's say we were 11 or 12 or 13 and they wanted for Lonzo, do it any day. Lonzo's still young, but at the same time, same thing with AD. This is a guy who really hasn't played a full season. Even going back to UCLA, he didn't play a full season with them and has always
Who's that, AD?
No, Lonzo.
Oh,
Lonzo.
I was going to say.
Yeah, Lonzo. No, even back to UCLA, he didn't play a full season with them.
Right.
Came in his first year, had injury problems immediately. Right out of summer league, he had injury problems. Yep. So to me, man, I like the idea. I think on paper that looks good. It looks like, we're filling a need. But to me, if you have a shot at Kobe White, you do it. And even if you miss Kobe White there, I still think the value you can get with the number 7 pick, you can get somebody there who's going to be better than Lonzo.
Yeah, I'm over here looking at this. I mean, it's so many point guards. So
there's a lot of point guards.
We've already beaten it down with Ja and Darius Garland. And you got Jared Culver out of Texas Tech.
Yeah.
You got Kobe White, as we said. Who else is on here? Romeo Langford.
And then, there's a guy from I know Winston is a guy that's sort of overlooked at Michigan State.
Yeah,
Cassius Winston. To me, man,
it's a lot of guys.
It's like you said, it's a lot of value. You've got the Bulls have got a sort of a predicament on their hands here where they may be good enough next year where they can make the playoffs.
I agree.
But they've got to find a way to take a step up personnel-wise. This year was just rough seeing some of the type of players that we were, fielding on the court when Lowry was hurt, and then you trade Portis and you trade Parker, and then all of a sudden you look in 40 games into the season, we're playing guys who have no business being on the court. So they've got to do a lot personnel-wise this year to improve. If they feel, I only feel like Lonzo is worth it here if you're going to be trading Chris Dunn, to be quite honest, because they play too much of a similar style. I personally want a guy I like Kobe White because of how aggressive he is. The penetration that he gives you was such a catalyst for the Tar Heels last year.
Right.
And again, he was one of the main reasons why they were beating Duke in those regular season games. And he was one of the main reasons why North Carolina was one of the best teams coming coming into the tournament.
Right.
So, with Lonzo, man, it's to me personally, I think that's something that Garpax would do. I'm not necessarily on board with that.
I just got a notification that War of Will has won the 144th Preakness Stakes.
Okay.
So if you're into horse racing,
welcome to 2019.
Pretty much. And then, whoever the horse that won the Kentucky Derby didn't even race in this because there was controversy.
Didn't somebody die? Didn't one of the horses die on the track or something like that? I saw something like that the other day.
If I saw correctly, apparently there was some beef. You know how horse racing is very strict on horses, of jockeys putting their horses in front of each other because they tangle up, break their legs, and if they feel they can't fix it, they have to euthanize the horse.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there was beef and controversy over the finish, and they weren't going to change it. So the guy was like, "Well, screw it, I'm not putting my horse in the Kentucky. In the Preakness."
Yeah. Well, and also before you get to boss, because I know we have to do the boss to boss sponsor here. Last week's UFC, we talked about it. Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade. It was a pretty disappointing, fight for me. So Rose came out in the first round and absolutely demolished Jessica. She was just, so technically sound. Her jab, her footwork. I mean, she looked absolutely like a different type of fighter and was dominating Andrade. And then all of a sudden, in the second round, Andrade does this incredible Hulk-like slam, and Rose lands on her neck and gets knocked out.
Yeah.
Andrade wins the championship, and after the fight, Rose Namajunas is talking about retirement. she's talking about changing leagues. And one of the things she said, and this was previously reported, was she's having some PTSD from the Conor McGregor dolly incident. She was one of the fighters that was inside the bus when Conor McGregor threw the dolly at the bus and broke the window with the whole Khabib thing.
Right.
And apparently she was one of the fighters on that bus, and says she has PTSD from that, and that she just doesn't really feel up to it in the UFC anymore, and might want to switch leagues, and also might want to retire. So that to me, man, was such a shock to my system, because she's young, she's still sort of getting in her in kind of her groove, and still becoming the fighter that she's going to be. Rose, please do not retire, please do not switch. I want to see you go back and get that championship and beat Andrade.
Let me go ahead and read this, because I'm gonna go off on what I feel about Conor McGregor. But
please.
Are you interested in starting a podcast? Boss to Boss Productions is looking for interesting ideas for new shows. Boss to Boss makes it easy to get your show up and running. They handle audio and video production and editing, logo design and branding, website design and hosting, RSS feed setup, scheduling, advertising momentation, and more. If you have an idea for a podcast or would like to advertise a production or an existing show, send us a message at bosstoboss.com. That's boss, BOSSED, 2, boss.com.
Before you start,
and I just
shout out my cousin Jamil, man. I saw your message. Shout out to you, Jamil. Thank you so much for watching and listening, man. I know you're loving it, so thank you so much, and can't wait to see you next.
Let me say this, man. You know, Conor McGregor's a clown.
Please.
I've been saying this for the longest, and everyone, you know, it's so funny because everyone wants to come and be like, oh, Conor McGregor's one of the greatest because he held 2 championships. Oh, God. So did Mark the Hammer Coleman.
Yeah, so did DC, yeah.
You know, and so did DC. Yeah. I'm not impressed. No. Like, I love when everyone was giving Khabib so much crap for jumping over that octagon to go beat the brakes off of his of McGregor's camp when they talked smack about his family. Yeah. And I worked with this guy, and he was trying to say, yeah, I think that was a bitch move. If you talked about my mom, and you talked about, if I was married, you talked about my wife, and you talked about my mom, and you talked about my dad, and you disrespected
my religion and my culture and my family and my father, and
I just straight up whooped your ass, and I know that your punk ass boys was
still talking mess,
I knock your ass out too as soon as I'm done knocking your ass out. Yep. So with Khabib, I have nothing against what Khabib did in that. Conor McGregor, in my opinion, has always been about show. Mm-hmm. He's never been about the UFC. No. You know, I mean, this is the same guy, and you know, I don't care too much for the Diaz brothers because I think that they're the same way. But I have so much respect, more or less, for Nick Diaz because I think Nick Diaz is a beast.
I do too.
And my
I love the Diaz brothers.
And Nate Diaz can hold his own too.
And he's got a fight now too. They just announced he's going to be coming back against Anthony Pettis, I believe, in July, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So Nate's going to come back for the first time since that second Conor fight. Yeah.
And my thing was like when Nick Diaz got upset because when he fought GSP kind of was more or less, they call it running. I say was dodging against a guy that's a world-class boxer.
Strategy, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He was upset because when you've been in Strikeforce for so long, and let's be real, I'm not saying Strikeforce sucks. I'm just saying that the middleweight competition or the welterweight competition in Strikeforce is not the same in the UFC.
No.
So when you're out there beating up KJ Noons,
oh my God,
okay, and the only win that KJ Noons ever had really in Strikeforce that I ever saw was when he beat Charles Crazy Horse Bennett.
My man, Charles, the felon. The felon, my man.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that was your best win. Yeah. And then you go off and you win the title from him. But then Nick Diaz is out here beating up all this lower competition in the welterweight. Yeah. GSP blows all these guys out of the water. It's not stupid. That's like when what's the boxer? James Lights Out Tony went up against Randy Couture.
Yeah.
Okay. Randy Couture in the pre-fight interview said, I'm not going to box a guy
who's a boxer
that's never been knocked down in his career.
Well,
so he took him down and choked his ass out in 30 seconds.
Those are like the same idiot UFC fans who are like, well, Khabib, I don't want to see somebody sitting on somebody else for 5 minutes because that's just boring. Have you ever heard of grappling or wrestling?
Yes.
Because that guy is a grappling wizard.
Yes.
So that's why he's able to do that. And, to your point on Conor, man, yeah, Conor's a clown in that way, and I think he's a great fighter. I think he's, don't get me wrong, he's done a lot for the UFC. He's a clown.
He's a clown.
He's a guy who is there for the show, and to me, Khabib's a real-ass dude.
Yeah, I agree.
Khabib's the type, Conor's the type of dude who will say something to you, and then once the cameras are off and you're backstage, he'll go, that was funny, right? Khabib's the type of dude where you say that in front of the cameras, you better be ready to say that behind the curtains too, because this dude is not playing around. And when you start talking about somebody's family and somebody's culture and somebody's father, who's widely considered to be one of the greatest MMA type of personalities in that region of the world, you better expect somebody. And again, he took that personally. I mean,
I would too.
Let's be completely honest with each other. He took that personally. People who say, well, that's unprofessional, Conor was trying to sell the fight. Nah, that's not what that was about. Okay, the whole press conference with the whiskey. This is a guy who's just trying to make as much money as he can, and keep that profile of being this, being Conor McGregor.
Right. I'm with you. And it's like every time Conor opens his mouth, or every time I look up, I see him in the news. Nothing good's coming out of it.
He doesn't want to fight anymore. It's like, what are you doing then? You don't want to fight. His beef now is that he wants shares of the UFC now, which that's something you should have negotiated years and years ago, which fighters have been negotiating. I know GSP back in the day, back when it was still the Fertitta brothers, was trying to get that type of thing going. Now Conor's like, well, I don't want to fight unless I have shares in UFC, and he wants to fight Mark Wahlberg for Mark Wahlberg's share of the UFC. Get out of here! You're a clown, bro. And
that's some WWE stuff right there. That's really wrestling stuff.
It's funny you said that, because in my mind, dude, if I'm Conor's management, agent, whatever it may be, I'm sitting him down, I'm telling him, maybe it's time for you to switch gears a little bit. Maybe you should go be an actor, or maybe you should go and, go to the WWE, or, there's different avenues for him now, because his heart's not in fighting. And if your heart's not in fighting, dude, especially in the UFC, you're going to get exposed.
Yeah.
We saw it with like Donald Cowboy Cerrone. We saw it with a couple of other guys who, took the whole fighting aspect a little less seriously than they should and got their ass knocked out. And let's be honest with you, Conor got his ass whooped by Khabib.
Yeah.
And anybody thinking who that guy deserved a rematch is a joke.
Yeah.
Because Conor didn't come close to doing what he should have done against Khabib to earn a rematch. So I'm happy that never happened. Like I said, I'm very happy that Nate Diaz is back in the mix. Nick Diaz apparently, he's eligible to fight now. Apparently doesn't want to fight anymore. That's disappointing to me.
I'm with you on that.
I still think he can fight. And to me, those two, the thing that I love about the Diaz brothers is this, right? They're not there to play to the judges.
Right.
They're not there for the point system.
Right.
They're not there to, let's get some strikes into my stat sheet. They're there to kick your ass.
Yep.
They're there to jab your face off.
Yep.
And they want you to, they want you to hit them in the face, and they want you to rattle them, because that's how they work.
Right.
This whole thing about, the second Conor and Nate fight, Conor knocked down Nate 3 times with punches. That's saying something, right? But Nate came back and won 3 rounds.
Yep.
Now, if you asking me, yeah, Conor won the fight. There's a case that can be made that he deserved to win that fight. There's also a case to be made that Nate could win that fight.
Right.
So we're talking about a whole different trajectory to your career. If Conor came back and didn't win that fight, we're talking about a whole different Conor McGregor and a whole different Nate Diaz. So the UFC also, it's worth mentioning, has to really tighten up the way that they're judging fights. they're still working on this archaic boxing 10-point system.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't work for the UFC. The stat sheet only tells you so much. I think people, especially people who know about MMA and know about fighting in general, will tell you there's a certain way that you can score by watching the fight, and there's a certain way you can score by watching the statistics. And I think right now they're judging too much on the statistics and not exactly what's going on in the octagon. And that's a problem, because you have guys who are fighting their ass off, and because they're not, the significant strikes or whatever it may be are not on paper, they're not getting these W's. So, it's a little bit disappointing to see, but
what you call it? Who's Tyrone Woodley supposed to be fighting?
So he actually had to pull out. It was Robbie Lawler.
There you go,
It was Robbie Lawler, and that would have been a great fight. He had to pull out. It's disappointing, man. I thought Woodley and Kamaru Usman was a really good fight. I thought Usman whooped his ass.
Yeah.
Which is saying something, because Woodley was so dominant. I mean, Woodley flies under the radar when it comes to the UFC because people don't think he's entertaining when he fights. He beats people up. Okay, that's what the UFC is. He beats people up, and he did it really effectively. He did it to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He's done it to so many guys, and now that Kamaru Usman comes out and beats him up, it's like, well, he's never going to be able to be the same. No, this guy's a beast, and he'll be back. I know Rufus Sport is big. You know
who you sound like when people be saying that stuff right there? Wrestling fans.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I wish wrestling was what it was back in the day, and this and that and everything else, and you just can't do it.
Right.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm steady. UFC, like this. I don't like this guy because he's not entertaining.
Get out of here.
All he does is he grapples. That was like the do you remember the Koscheck Paul Daly fight that got Paul Daly thrown out of the UFC? They talked much smack, and everyone was so pissed at Josh Koscheck, and I'm like, this move is genius. You're going to sit up here and talk so much smack for every bit of the last 3 weeks, how you guys were going to stand up, and Josh Koscheck knows he don't have hands like Paul Daly, so he did exactly what he was supposed to do. A world-class wrestler went against a guy who can't wrestle.
Yeah. And the funny part is that whole like spiel or that whole incident with Paul Daly, he ended up going on to Bellator and doing really well for himself. So
my man Paul Dude, we call him the Chef. He was saying that he can't stand people who complain about fighters that are natural wrestlers. Yeah, exactly.
Me too. Yeah, that's such a great point. Like this whole thing about Khabib, like he sat on him for 3 minutes, and that's not fighting. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want... let me just say this, okay? And I don't want to offend anyone. If you want to watch people punching each other in the face, go watch boxing.
Exactly.
Okay? That's what boxing is.
Yes.
If you want to watch fighters, that's what MMA is. Okay?
It's called mixed martial arts.
It's mixed martial arts, and not only that, that's the closest thing to we have right now to what a fight is, okay? Yeah. Because in a fight, it could go anywhere. This, I could tackle you to the ground, and we could stay on the ground for 15 minutes. That's what a fight is, right? So having this pure, these people, especially, there's a very famous interview with Joe Rogan, and he did an interview on ESPN with another guy. I don't know. He's a famous boxing guy. I don't know him. And this boxing guy's like, yeah, well, UFC just, they play grab butt and da-da-da. And Joe Rogan's like, well, boxing is obsolete now because the best, and he's right. The best athletes in the world now are going to, to the MMA. They're not going, for boxing anymore.
Right.
So that's another thing is these athletes who are wrestlers, especially wrestlers. The big thing right now is that, there's a lot of people who wrestle in high school and wrestle in college, and then they just kind of have nowhere else to go. And that's what the UFC and MMA is. And we talked about it last week. I'm so happy that Bellator is around and ONE FC is around and PFL is around, because the UFC is not the only, it's not the NBA, it's not the NFL, it's one of the leagues, and there's other leagues, and the fighters in those leagues are just as good as the UFC. Let's be honest. Bellator, I missed the fight, but Lima versus MVP was last week, and MVP got his ass knocked out. It was pretty Michael Venom Page, it was one of my favorite fighters in Bellator. He's one of those guys that sort of has this kind of slipping style, and he sort of tries this kung fu side style, and he tried to get a little bit too pretty, and Lima hit him with one, and he just went out like a light. So, that just goes to show, man, the talent level in the MMA community is getting, sort of ramped up, and you're starting to see that the UFC isn't exactly the go-to league anymore. There's other ways to do it. So,
Chef said that boxing was dead after Floyd came after McGregor.
That is so, and it's also, that's when McGregor started to go out the window for me, too.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, guys, this guy just wants money. He just wants the publicity. He doesn't really care about the sport.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. And
and
what?
Mayweather kicked his, let's be honest, Mayweather kicked his ass. I mean, Mayweather basically came out the first 3 rounds and didn't throw a punch.
Bingo. That's exactly what
beat
happened.
The hell out of him.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Because by round 6, McGregor had no idea what was going on.
And he looked, McGregor, there's a certain look that McGregor gives when he's done. It's kind of like this hunched back, almost like he's like panting for air, hunchback, and his eyes sort of droop a little bit. And you saw that in the 4th round. Because let's call a spade a spade. He's never gone that late into a fight before. So for him to, try and make it, a lot of people were saying, well, that was an early stoppage. He would have got hurt if Mayweather had his chance at it. So,
and then just looking at the warm-up videos between Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, it was night and day. Floyd is over here doing what boxers supposed to do, and this idiot is over here flailing his arms like a complete
playing
moron.
touch butt with
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? That's
says.
not like, who's that? And there's legit people that thought Conor was going to get the best of a guy who has never lost a fight in his professional career.
Yeah, and to me, when people said that, I'm like, what?
Yeah. Well, if boxing, it's some stupid dumbass reason you're going to give me on how you think that Conor was going to beat Floyd. No, because by round 8, it was pretty much over with, and we saw what happened. So, dude, it's not. I've never really had too much respect for Conor McGregor, and every time I look up, I understand why. Like I say, I think he's an idiot. I think he's a moron. And for what it's worth, I'm just glad he's out of the UFC. Yeah. And I have big ups for what Khabib did. Yeah. And especially, it's a lot of people that don't like, people that clown they culture and their religion. Mm-hmm. And you went out there and you did that. You didn't think this man was finna whoop your ass and their ass because they let you do that.
And there's a lot of people who aren't Hollywood, man. People forget that, man. People think the UFC is like all about these celebrity, dude, Khabib don't give a shit about
He
fame.
don't give
a shit about money. He goes there to maul people, to be the best in the world, and to get a paycheck, right? Not he's not there so that he can, I need 50 million or I need to share the UFC or he's there to prove he's the best freaking fighter in the world. And to me, a guy who's undefeated with that many fights, you start to pay attention and say, yeah, that guy's a bad dude.
Yes, exactly. So, something else I want to bring. Oh, yes, I'm so good. I forgot to talk about this on the Bear Cave. I'm going to bring it now.
Yes.
If I could give the biggest FU thumbs down, welcome to 2019, can I please give it to the Chicago Cubs? Did you hear about that guy that got banned from Wrigley from giving what was usually the You ever done this before?
Sure.
Okay, so apparently some guy was one of their sideline reporters was giving an interview and he dropped the sign behind him, as a joke.
Yeah.
And the Cubs took that as a sign of white power.
Well, hold on. Let me stop you right there, Nick. When white supremacists come out and tell you on the internet, it's because Reddit is their thing now, right? Reddit is the white supremacist type of thing now. These 4chan, 8chan. This is where these guys go to sort of convene, right? To me, man, and I saw that, and I feel bad for the guy because he may have been in a position where he didn't know. To me, man, we have to start to look a little bit more closely at things and start to look at things in context. Doug Glanville was the guy that was.
Was that Doug Glanville?
Okay. Doug Glanville, okay. A black guy, something that this is not new to the public stratosphere, right? This whole, idea of this, this used to be this,
right?
Used to be I caught you under the thing, I get to hit you, right?
Exactly.
Now when the narrative has shifted, right? And you have to take people for their word. And when they tell you this is ours and this is what we do to infiltrate, and you've got thousands and thousands of pictures of these white supremacists doing this in pictures, maybe don't do that game anymore. You know what I'm saying? Okay,
first off, I don't even know. I don't even know where this, because when I was in high school, it was this.
It was this, and then it turned into this.
Yeah, and I'm like, what is that? Yeah, because as a exactly. Because I know that as a conspiracy theorist, I know that this usually used to be the 666 sign that a lot of people throw out. Okay. So whenever I see this, I'm like, man, don't throw that stuff at me. They're like, that's what the new kids be doing. I'm like, nah, man, it's this. I do that. Hey, I swear, I do that work all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, I got this gift for you.
Gotcha.
I do that every time. It's childish as hell, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So when I read that, I was like, is that really the white supremacist sign?
Yeah.
Because I thought that was I got you.
Right.
Now the whole world's got to punch themselves. No, sir.
Yeah. No, man, this is sort of a tough topic, because I think now more than ever, and I think we probably both know about this, but with the current climate of everything in this country.
Nah, you right.
There's a couple of different sides, and I think both sides sort of have a hard time finding middle ground. And one of the things that to me is super apparent is that white supremacy is on the rise right now in this country, okay? We've got guys that, 10, 15 years ago wouldn't have existed, now do exist. And we've got guys walking into places with guns and walking into churches and mosques and synagogues with guns, and they're online telling you that this is our sign. Sometimes you have to take their word for it. So let me just say this, okay? If you want to play this game, let's change it. Let's
start it on this show.
Let's start it on this show, okay?
We gotta go back to
no more of this. Let's do this. Let's go back to this, okay?
Clearly,
let's go back to this. It's got to be under the waist.
And it's got to be under the waist.
If it's not under the waist, it doesn't count.
It doesn't count. And you have to call you got to call self-serve.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you must call self-serve.
It's also, here's the thing, man. The one thing that was sensitive about this issue, and I think the reason why the Cubs were so swift on the action was because it was Doug Glanville, and Doug Glanville has been abused in the past when he's on the sidelines. When it comes, let's just be honest with each other here, guys. Racism is just kind of a part of our country, something that's going away, but that's something that is kind of still there. It's still lingering, right? And we're doing our best as a whole to get rid of it. And and I think when Doug Glanville comes to you and says, and I think Glanville was the one who initiated that. I think he was the one who said, I think this guy is basically doing it because I'm on screen.
Right.
So I do want to say the Cubs did that because they are trying to be sensitive and trying to be a little bit more thoughtful about what happens. But let me just say, the Cubs are ran by the Ricketts, and the Ricketts are, they give pretty much the most money of anyone to the Republican Party.
Right.
So, let's be frank. Let's call it 100, and let's call a spade. The Cubs did that for, they did that so that people would say, wow, the Cubs did a great job of, nipping it in the bud, and, they didn't want any racism there, when in reality, man, I mean, you go to Boston and you're a black player in Boston, it's not very nice for you. You go to some of these states and you're a black player or you're a Hispanic player, they're not very nice to you. So there's a balancing act that has to happen here. And I also want to say one big thing that I think is getting a little bit crazy, especially in the NBA is I think Adam Silver said he wants 50% of the future coaches to be female. I don't care if you're a male or a female.
Right.
I want you to know basketball, right?
Right.
Becky Hammon, nobody blinks an eye when Becky Hammon is an assistant coach. Because Becky Hammon knows basketball. She's played basketball. She's been on that Spurs staff for a long, long time. Popovich groomed her into that role. So,
because then she's played for the San Antonio
she used to play for the San Antonio Silver Stars, and then she came on as one of the first, front office people, and then she, got to the bench. So nobody in sports is saying we don't want women, right? I think everybody understands that women are going to be, a bigger part of the game, both on the refereeing side and on the coaching side. But when you come out and say we want half of the half of the referees and half of the coaches to be female, that's just kind of pigeonholing yourself a little bit. And we've got to start to think about what is good for the game and what is just trying to pander to the masses. And I think that's just a pandering.
And you know what? Because while we're on the subject, I've always been on the fence about that Rooney Rule in the NFL.
Yeah.
There's a piece of me that understands it, but there's a lot of me that doesn't like it.
Right.
And the reason why I don't like it is because don't waste my time if you're not going to hire me.
Sure.
And I'll give you.
Don't bring me in just to knock me off of the Rooney Rule.
Exactly. And I'm gonna give you two examples. One that I understood, even though they got fined, and one that really made me upset. The Detroit Lions, when they hired Steve Mariucci, knew they wanted Steve Mariucci, only interviewed Steve Mariucci, and still got fined 10, 15, 20, whatever it was.
Yeah, that's dumb.
For not interviewing a black coach. Okay. But then, do you remember the former Bears defensive coach or defensive coordinator, Greg Bloch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When the San Francisco job opened up, Greg Bloch got 3 interviews. And there was a lot of hype thinking that this man was finna get the job. And then out of nowhere, Dennis Erickson ended up getting it.
Yeah.
And that pissed me off so bad because I was like, well, then why would you make this man come in here if
Just
you
to
knew he wasn't going to get the job?
Yeah.
Like,
That Rooney Rule needs some,
sense.
when people say, well, why is there affirmative action? When people start to research why affirmative action is a thing, they will understand why affirmative action exists, right? Because, previously, black people weren't being considered for these roles. And, previously, when people say, well, you got black colleges. Why do you have black colleges? There's no such thing as white college. Because black people weren't allowed to go to school before, okay? So you'll start
that's one of those do your research.
Right. So once people start to do the research, they go, oh, but with the Rooney Rule, to me, man, that's just, again, another pandering to the fans and to say, well, we're progressive, by the way. We make sure that every team interviews a minority head coach, because if they don't, they get fined. Well, at the end of the day, and I'll be honest with you, I can't think of an example of somebody who is black who got a job who didn't deserve a job, to be quite honest. All these guys in the last couple of years, going back to like Lovie Smith and Mike Tomlin and all these
Jim
guys.
Caldwell,
Jim Caldwell. These are all guys who deserved. These are all guys who deserved jobs. They didn't get their job because they're black, right? They didn't get their job because they're trying to meet a quota. The NFL has to sort of, shift the way that they look at things, especially with the Rooney Rule. Nobody cares about how many, what the race is of people that you are interviewing. We just want to know that everybody's being considered. That's what affirmative action is, okay? Affirmative action isn't we give a black guy a job or a Mexican guy a job or an Arab guy a job over a white guy. No. It's just we're making sure that everybody's being considered, and because when we look at the history of things, everybody wasn't being considered before.
Yeah,
right?
I just think for some reason, it's not so much if. Okay, so that's like if let me give a random team. I don't know, the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
Let's say Bill O'Brien gets fired after this year.
Hopefully.
Right. Okay. And then out of the blue, Jim Caldwell is the first guy they interview and might be the leading candidate for the job. I'm gonna be blue to death. Yeah. If just some random Joe Blow just out of nowhere just ends up getting the job.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying.
For sure.
Like if you want me to go ahead and have his job, okay, seriously consider me.
Right.
I just don't want to be the statistic, so you don't get fined.
Yeah, I want to be
That's
there
all
based
I'm
on
asking.
merit. I want to
Right.
be there based on
I
merit.
want you to see my resume and be
and
like,
Ji-
I
and
really
Jim
think-
Caldwell is qualified for that job. Now, if we're talking about like, what was the name of Tucker, the former Bears guy who we got? Like, for example, Tucker, when the Bears defensive coordinator was black. If he was considered for the job, he'd be like, what the hell? He sucks.
Right,
The Bears'
right.
defense sucked under him. Everybody would call that out. But we've got guys like Jim Caldwell. You've got guys like, there's a couple, even Steve Wilkes, who lost his job in Arizona. I thought he didn't get a fair shake at it, to be quite honest. They fired him after 1 year, and next thing you know, the whole regime changes. They trade Rosen. They bring in Murray. They bring in this. So, at the same time, man, to me, I don't want sports pandering to me. We've already got enough of that in politicians on both aisles, where we got these Democrats who pander to us. We've got Republicans who pander us. I don't want that, okay?
Right.
I just want to be able to know that the best guy for the job is going to be considered.
Exactly.
And that's all I care about at the end of the day. Hey, I do want to say this, okay? Shout out to Hodgepodge. Shout out to Boss Productions, Boss to Boss, period, and then obviously Intrinsic Marketing. Those are our sponsors. I do want to wrap this. Any parting words here, Nick?
I'm taking Deontay Wilder tonight.
Yeah. If he kills him, I'm going to be disappointed, okay?
If he dies, he dies.
If he dies, he dies. Yeah, don't kill him, Deontay. Just beat him and then, let the guy go home to his family,
Yeah,
okay?
you know what I'm saying?
Everybody
Right.
wins. You get your money
Right.
and everybody wins. So
I mean, other than that, though, another fine show in the books.
yeah.
Nick fans,
and
please
I can't
don't
wait till
jump off
next
the
week
bridge.
because next week is going to be even doper because I think both series might be done by next week.
Yeah, I think by next week we're in the finals.
We'll be talking finals. We can jump into MLB next week.
Yep.
We can even jump into some NHL draft stuff next week because I know
Oh,
that there's going to be some combine stuff. I saw Kako. I saw some highlights of him. That guy looks crazy. Jack Hughes. So we'll talk all of that. But for Nick, I'm Mac.
And New Jersey, don't do the dumb thing. Freaking take cues.
Yeah, please.
Let us take Kako.
Please. So again, guys, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys watching. Again, Nick, I'm Mac. We're signing out. Peace.